Bam. We are here. We are active. Someone in the chat says Owen isn't here yet. Oh, I'm here. Oh, I'm here. What's up, guys? How's it going? You know the deal. I'm going to go to YouTube, copy the link, like I do every single stream. You'll hear my own voice. It's so amateur, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do? How's it going this week? It's been a crazy week, man. It's been a crazy week. Someone said, what's a Gog? We are all going to find out together. Cool. All right, posted it. Word up. So we'll just chill for a minute, let some people come in, and that's how it's going to go down. That's how it's going to go down. How you guys doing, though, for real? What does it say? Error. YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. Why? You should be getting so much video. I got the green light. I got the CPU percent. I think we're good. Let's see, move my hand a little bit. Dun, 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 dun. Nice. Peter M. in the chat. Everyone's here. So yeah, we'll just chill for a few minutes and then get it going. Let's see. Is it smooth? I think it's smooth. I'm getting this little like error thing, but I think it's fine. Stream health. Poor. Whoa, my stream health is poor. That's not good. How do I fix that? It looks fine. I think I'm just going to roll with it. I got the green light in OBS. I could just restart the stream right now, but I don't really want to do that. I think it'll be cool. We'll see. If it's like skippy or weird, we'll figure it out. But yeah, man, how you guys doing? It's going pretty well over here. My AC in my house is not working, so I have all the windows open, which is actually kind of cool. It's kind of a blessing. I would probably have all the windows closed if it was working, but I got this cool breeze going on. Got the dog situation going on. That's still new with me. What else is going down? I've been reading a lot of stuff and going. I haven't been reading, but I've been listening to a lot of stuff. Stream health is coronavirus. Yo, actually, I got a coronavirus test this week, and it came back negative. Bam. I do not have the coronavirus. 100% authorized. I was going to post it on Twitter, and then I was like, can I post my own medical records? I guess I can, right? I could get a HIPAA violation or something. Cool. All right, I'm going to make a little executive decision on my own channel right now. I noticed I could make people moderators in the chat, and I'm just gonna do it. I'm making a few people moderators right now, not for any particular reason. Peter M is gonna be a moderator. I picked that. Who else is here a lot? I feel like Fritz Pendleton is here a lot. Maybe I'll regret this. But I'm just going to make some people moderators because I realize I can't really watch the chat, and like if I needed to kick anyone else out, I can't. So I'm arbitrarily deputizing people in the chat. Why not? Why not try something new? All right, we'll wait one more minute, let people get in, and then we'll get it going. Otherwise, what else is going down with me? Really just the dog thing, man. The dog's been eating up like all my like free time. The free time I don't have, but it's actually kind of tight having a dog because I'm like more tethered to reality now. Like I actually have to like go outside and like experience life outside instead of being at my computer like 24/7 doing art. So it's pretty cool. I'll probably draw the dog eventually. I was also getting into some cryptid stuff. It actually oddly dovetails with what we're going to talk about tonight, so we'll probably get into it. But I have been re-hitting the cryptid stuff pretty hard, and it's awesome. I feel like I always talk about how I go in these like huge circles and like, you know, I'll go through all these topics, but then there's always that feeling when I come back to one that I haven't touched in a while, and I'm like, oh yeah, national parks, people going missing, cryptids in general. You're just like, oh, I forgot about you. Why haven't I been touching this little pile of cool stuff for so long? So that's been really dope. Anything new these days? Just the dog. I got some medical shit going on this week. It's not really a big deal. working. I'm dropping a new print soon. I'm almost done with this angel print that I've been working on. That's looking really sick. I've just been doing a lot of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like arsenal upgrading in the studio, getting new frames, trying to figure out some projects, trying to figure out my next comic situation. I got kind of 2 comics and I don't really know if I can work on them at the same time. I want to make the next iteration of the sex comic. I kind of want to, I think I've talked about this before on here, but I did the sex comic. In case you didn't see, it's on my Twitter. You can go to the profile linked in my bio there. So I did this comic about like sex and porn, and I kind of wanted to go through a bunch of topics like that, like weed, psychedelics, like occult stuff, like, you know, all these different like topics, and like put them together. But I also have the Morningstar 99 stuff, which is like very like esoteric suburbanism, if you're like familiar with the vibe here. I don't know if I can work on them at the same time because they're so different. One is like really stark and normal, and not normal, but like autobiographical and very like, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. That's how I felt about it. Then this happened. But the other one I want it to be really like atmospheric. So I've been kind of making notes about it. Very like pretentious notes about how I kind of want the Morningstar 99 comic to be. There's this concept, well, I'll talk about this and then we'll kick the show off because it's been 6 minutes. There's this concept called liminal spaces. Most of you guys are probably familiar with that, or you could just use context clues to deduce what that means. But liminal spaces are spaces that are kind of like in between uses or in between like having clear functions. So like a lot of like stereotypical like aesthetic photos online are of liminal spaces, like empty parking lot on a road trip, empty airport, weird roads kind of between different spaces. And they're usually urban, like an empty building, or, you know, spaces that don't have like a clear meaning are kind of like liminal spaces. So part of what I want to do in Morningstar 99 is use as many like rural liminal spaces as possible, since I have thought a lot about like spaces and aesthetics and stuff. When I'm out here where I live, there's like, you know, cows and stuff like that. But there are these like really interesting rural liminal spaces where I'll just be in this zone outside and I'm kind of like, is this like a parking lot, but it butts up against like a wheat field, and there's like a farm 2 feet away, but then right there's like a gas station, and like, probably sounds like nonsensical, but just these cool like spaces like in between clear uses, and that's part of what I want to pump in the comics. So I've just been making notes like that and kind of planning it out a little bit, mapping like some conversations I want to include. Wow, it's been 8 minutes. That is an unacceptable amount of time to make people that are on time wait for the show. Let's do it. I'm going to click the right button. I went back to put the timestamps in for all the shows, and every single time I clicked the wrong button and it went to black. But right now, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to click the right button. Are you guys ready? It's happening right now. My God, I clicked the wrong one. What? Oh, I know what happened. I moved it off the desktop. Okay, hold up. This is the first technical difficulty in season 2. We've had everything so locked up. Everything's been going perfectly, but I think I fixed it because I moved everything off my desktop. But let's see if it's gonna work. Man, that's really annoying. All right, we're gonna do this kind of like ghetto style. I'm just gonna play it. I'm gonna cut to the desktop and then play it. All right. I can't believe that worked. I hope that worked. Nice. I usually have the intro file on my desktop, but I moved it, so we just cut in. We do it live. Have you guys seen the Bill O'Reilly clip? We do it live. That's how we do it. I feel good about that. Got the adrenaline pumping. I had to open up my phone to make sure you guys could hear the music, but we're good. How's it going, guys? We're kicking off the show right now. I'm doing great. We were just talking for a minute, so let's just cut to the chase. Oh, cool! If I make people a mod in the chat, they have a little wrench next to their name. That's cool. That's like the elite program here, I guess. So we're gonna jump into some stuff right now. I'm actually pretty stoked because sometimes when my taskbar was at the top. I don't think it is anymore though. Sometimes when I jump into topics and stuff like that, there's a lot of really interesting, like kind of coincidental, weird connections between things. I think that's really cool. That's gonna happen right now. We're gonna go back desktop style and look at some photos and get painting and stuff like that. So I'm excited to just hop right in case it's your first time here. The way I've kind of been doing it is, the beginning, I'm not really looking at the chat like the whole time. I'm kind of just getting out what I want to talk about. I'll poke in and stuff like that. I'm mastering how to run the show and look at the chat, and then we can kind of just get to talking about whatever we want. One thing that has been going well is a little bit of an intro. I have this bookshelf over here. I've been enjoying pulling weird, interesting books off the shelf. Maybe someone will pick them up. Maybe someone's looking for something to read. So that's what we're going to do right now. Just take a little quick look, 30 seconds, little plug for some cool books over here. Boom. So I really like these books a lot. Some of you guys have probably seen these before. It's called The Golden Legend. This is a really cool book for me because in certain medieval, I guess you could call them like universities or like, it's not really the right word to use, like medieval Christian studying situations. I guess you can call them universities, probably monasteries and stuff like that too. This would be one of the books you would study kind of like after the Bible, or it's like right up there near the top, I guess you could say. This is my amateur pitch for the book. I didn't like hardcore go into this. But yeah, they're really cool because it's a compendium of saint stories, and I really like them a lot because this really lands at this really nice spot that I want to tap into more, and that I think other people are also really into, where it's like I don't want to say mythology because of course, it all really happened, obviously, unironically, but it has like a mythological vibe. Like there's some things in here, it ranges from like what you would expect, like normal saint stories, like this guy was a really good person and then he got kidnapped by these Romans and then he was Christian and did this really good thing and then he got martyred. Like it has stories like that. But then it also has just like really weird, like profoundly strange stories that seem really symbolic and don't make a lot of sense to, the first time you're reading it over. It also has a lot of kind of like fable-y stories. Fable is like a good word too. There's one story in here where this saint is running from these soldiers and he ducks into this like corridor and there is a spider there. And the spider kind of like magically, I guess, like via like divine intervention, weaves this spider web over the front of the corridor where he's hiding. So when the soldiers come by, one of the soldiers says, "Oh, he could be in this corridor. Let's go look." And the other soldier says, "Nah, man, no one's been in there for a long time. Look, you can see the spider web right here." And then thus he is saved from the soldiers. So it's kind of that really cool overlap between like actual theology and then I guess you could say fantastic myths, fables, energy, and then also things that are like symbolic and just that cool kind of weird medieval flavor I'm always trying to pump. So thought I would plug this. If anyone's looking for something to read, these books are really cool. Let me collect my fat check from Princeton Publishing right now. Cool. All right, so what I wanted to go into right now, I'm continuing the theme of visionary, apocalyptic, Old Testament, New Testament visions, symbols, things like that. And I wanted to poke into something a little bit more, I don't really want to call it obscure. Well, I'll show you guys what I was thinking. I'm going to grab this Bible over here off my small table. Today we are using, that's true, someone in the chat said we don't see dragons anymore because St. George killed the last one. Fact check true. That is fact check true in the chat. So we're going to use the Dewey Reams Bible right now. I cover my Bibles usually. They usually have like a really intense, like very loud cover trying to like grab your attention off the shelf. So I usually cover them with this paper. Obviously this is not the cover it came with. But this is what we're going to use today because why not? In case you're not familiar with this Bible translation, I guess I would kind of call it like the Catholic King James Bible, if I could say that. It's kind of written in like older English. So there's more, quote unquote, like hardcore accurate translations, but it won't really matter for our purposes. And I kind of just wanted to use it because I never do. And it was here on my floor. Not on my floor. It was on the table next to my desk. So what I was thinking right now is I was thinking along the apocalyptic visions, empires, things, if you've been watching the last few episodes, that's kind of what we've been talking about. Talked a lot about Babylon as both like a literal city and like a literal place, but also being like an archetypal kind of evil empire that Christians wrestle with, from all the way back then until now, it being symbolic of society that kind of tries to force you to compromise with it. And how do you engage with that? How do you engage with these like larger forces that are around you? Something I always think about when I'm thinking about stuff like that is a long time ago when I was reading a book about African masks, it said that a lot of art and a lot of religion in general is just made so man can figure out how he would like to engage with the unseen forces that govern his life. I think that's like a really, really good umbrella that encompasses a lot of things. All of us, especially now, like in modernity, but also back in the day also. I just like that phrase, unseen forces. We all have these like unseen elements, these things that we can't see, but conversely, they control our lives and like govern how we act in very real ways. So I think, the evil empire, society, things like that kind of fit in. And I was going through my notes and I hit these notes I had about this thing called Gog and Magog. And I was like, that's pretty weird. And I looked into it a little bit more, kind of had forgotten about it. And I thought it would be perfect. It's in the book of Ezekiel at first, but we're actually going to jump to Revelation in a second. So we'll spend like 5 minutes unpacking this, probably a little bit less actually, just a few minutes looking at this. And then we'll jump in to the images. I'm also going to open Katana on my phone. This is the weekly plug for Katana. Also weekly plug for the show, Painted Worlds. Check it out. Bandcamp and Spotify. They do the music for the show. Painted Worlds. Painting show, Painted Worlds. Okay, boom, I got Ezekiel right here. So it's in the book of Ezekiel, which I've been wanting to hit, and most of you guys probably know there's a really, really, really famous scene in Ezekiel where he has kind of like the vision. If you go into biblical visions, it's definitely going to be one of the first ones that pops up, where he sees the OPHANIM and the cherub, and they have the tetramorphic heads. Tetramorph means like the 4 animal heads, and it's probably the most famous vision in the Bible aside from Revelation, honestly, if I had to guess. So I was thinking about that, but I didn't really want to hit that one maybe yet. I felt like we're doing something cool. We're going underneath the surface and hitting things that most people normally don't talk about. So I got here, and it's in the book of Ezekiel, but it's a little bit different. So it's in chapter 38 in the book of Ezekiel, and basically what happens is he has this prophecy where he is told to prophesy the coming of these. Well, I'll just read it. Let's just read it. We'll read the first like few verses here, and then we'll keep it moving. All right, so we're in chapter 38 in Ezekiel. And the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog. So that's why I titled the show Gog and Magog. So Gog is kind of like a person, and then Magog is like the place where he's from. That could be why he's called that. And say to him, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I come against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Mos and Thubal. I don't know where those places are, honestly. And I will turn thee about, and I will put a bit in thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thy army, horses and horsemen, all clothed with coats of mail, a great multitude, armed with spears and shields and swords. So basically this big empire, this army of this guy is called forth, and prepare and make thyself ready, and all thy multitude that is assembled about thee, and be thou commander over them. After many days thou shalt be visited. At the end of years thou shalt come to the land that is returned from the sword, and is gathered out of many nations, to the mountains of Israel, which have been continually waste, but it hath been brought out of the nations, and they shall all of them dwell securely in it. So basically he calls forth this army, and I think it's really interesting because what I'm about to read right now, he kind of uses it as a way to, God uses it as a way to exert his punishment and wrath and something that he wants to do on these people. But Gog and Magog themselves are these like evil forces. So it's kind of interesting, and it fits in with a lot of the stuff we talked about the last few weeks, where God uses these, forces that are not aligned with him for his purposes. I'm thinking about when we talked about Balaam, back when we did the first episode about Book of Numbers, and a few other things like that. So it's just always kind of interesting for me, even things that are seeming for evil, God uses for his own purposes. That's a pretty famous quote from, I think it's in Genesis, when Joseph has his whole story. He's cast out by his brothers, and then later he said, you intended this for evil, but God intended it for good. I really like some of the phrasing and like images that are used here. We're going to use this in the painting, that's why I'm going over it. And thou shalt go up and come like a storm, and like a cloud to cover the land, thou and all thy bands and many people with thee. So the idea of this army coming like a storm, coming like a cloud, I think that's really awesome. And he goes to this land and he basically assaults it. Cutting forward a little bit. And thou shalt come upon my people of Israel like a cloud. So the same imagery is used twice. To cover the earth. Thou shalt be in the latter days, and I will bring thee upon my land, that the nations may know me, when I shall be sanctified in thee, O Gog, before their eyes. Thus saith the Lord God, thou then art he, of whom I have spoken in the days of old, by my servants the prophets of Israel, who prophesied in the days of those times, that I would bring thee upon them. And it shall come to pass in that day, in the day of the coming of Gog upon the land of Israel, saith the Lord God, that my indignation shall come upon in my wrath. So it's kind of interesting here because he's saying like, yeah, this big army is going to come. It's like the super like evil army basically, but it's part of like what I prophesied in the past. So again, kind of repeating myself, but this force that isn't aligned with God but is being used for his purposes. So it's evil, but it's kind of something that God is like machinating behind the scenes. I think that's really cool. Cool. So it's talking about him judging. And I will judge him with pestilence and with blood and with violent rain and with hailstones. I will rain fire and brimstone upon him and upon his army and upon the many nations that are with him. So we'll get some of this in the image. So I found this chapter in Ezekiel and I was like, all right, it's pretty cool. This army coming to like a sail, the people and stuff. Like I'm down, but I was like, I'm not really there for like the whole painting show theme. Like not really going to get the whole thing going on just from that. But Gog and Magog is also mentioned in the book of Revelations. And this is where I was like, all right, yeah, we're definitely going to do this. So I'm just going to read quickly. Just a tiny little bit from here. We're in chapter 20. The subheader is pretty awesome. Satan is bound for 1,000 years. The souls of the martyrs reign with Christ in the first resurrection. The last attempts of Satan against the church. The last judgment. And I saw an angel coming down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. It's a pretty awesome image. I think we're obviously going to use that. And he laid hold on the dragon, the old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. And he cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should no more seduce the nations, till the 1,000 years be finished. And after that he must be loosed a little time. So this angel binds Satan with a chain, and he's locked up for like 1,000 years. What I thought was really interesting was in one of the commentaries. I'm not going to pull it up right now. I kind of want to get through this a little quickly. I think it was Jerome, actually. St. Jerome said that this is obviously... Actually, I am going to pull it up just because it's so perfect. Hold up one second. He says... it's not St. Jerome, it's someone else. But he says that literally it's like a painting on a canvas because the spiritual truths have to be conveyed in this way. Let's see. I'm going to pull it up right now. 1 second... Actually, maybe I'm not going to pull it up right now. Just see if it's in section 1. Okay, perfect. I found it. So it's this guy. I was about to say it's not worth it to find it, but I found it. It's this guy, Oecumenius, from AD 990. This is just too perfect for what we're about to do, so I thought I had to read it. As if in a sketch on a canvas, the evangelist perceives the spiritual actions of the Lord against the devil. Since it was not possible for a human being such as John to see spiritual events, they are depicted for him in physical terms, an angel with a chain binding the devil and throwing him into a bottomless pit. For this is how the book of Job, too, expressed in physical terms the devil's venture and God's consent. I thought that was really cool. So this guy in 990 AD is saying this is literally like a painting because you can't see these like super physical things in like a linear way that you're used to being like a fleshy human. It's conveyed as though it's like symbols upon a canvas, which is literally what we're about to do. And he says, keys to the bottomless pit. This is because he has in his power the hearts of those whom he hardens, and of those whom he opens to believing. The bottomless pit is the great number of the faithful peoples, because just as it is incomprehensible, so also is the great number of people. So he's thrown into this bottomless pit. For our purposes, we're cutting forward a little bit more. This is the last thing we're going to read, and then we'll look at some pictures, and then we'll jump into painting. So this is the part that's relevant to us. So Satan is bound for 1,000 years, but then when the 1,000 years is up, and when the 1,000 years shall be finished, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go forth and seduce the nations. It's kind of like what's happening right now, which are over the 4 quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, and shall gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. And they came upon the breadth of the earth and encompassed the camp of the saints and the beloved city. So that's actually the image that we're going to work with, that we're going to do right now. I really like this idea of this like kind of archetypal evil empire coming to surround this camp of saints in this like holy city. It's also cool because in Ezekiel, it's kind of described as though it's like a literal, actual empire. Like the way when we looked at Daniel, those visions seem to be about like, oh, these are the Greeks and these are the Persians and these are the Romans, like about actual particular groups and forces. But then in the book of Revelation, it's obviously a type of like kind of like a mini antichrist kind of figure, if I could be so casual with my language. It's obviously like an archetypal, or at least in the future event and people and a unit and a guy, but it's the same name as before. So it kind of like in my mind makes it into like an archetypal symbol directly. So that's really it. We're just going to jump right in. So I thought it was cool. It's also the Gog and Magog thing. It's used in a lot of like prophecies and things like that because it is in the book of Revelation. It is used as this kind of like evil empire that assails the holy city and like the kingdom of Jerusalem. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to back to desktop mode really quick. Boom. Boom. And I just want to look at some pictures with you guys really quick right now. So I pulled up some of these images. We're just going to look at them super fast. So here you can see, I know this is a really bad picture. This is the worst one, but I wanted to show it for a particular reason. This is a scan of this like really, really old map I found where you can see there's this city right here. And then it says Gog. So it's showing Gog and Magog as like an actual city in place. But notice right here, this guy has this dog head over here. So that's something we'll get to in a second. Boom. Thought this was pretty awesome. This is kind of probably the vibe we're going to go for. You can see that this is on this like light paper. It's almost like kind of watercolored, so that's perfect for what we're doing right now. Got these super evil dudes. Again, someone over here has the dog head assailing this like holy city. Actually, they're actually in the city here getting these guys with the halos. I don't know if that's really what happens, but it's kind of a lot for me. This is pretty rad. Here we have one of the beasts from Revelations painted with the 7 heads. Got these guys assailing this holy city with these holy people inside, the encampment of the saints. Actually, it's pretty cool because Augustine said in one of the commentaries that the term encampment is used because it has a military aspect to it. You know, like the church militant. The church is like in the world. The holy people are in the world. So I thought that was kind of cool. Here, got the same deal. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So we got the city. It's being assailed. But check this out. If you were here last week, we talked about Da Vinci saying that dragons have the dog head sometimes. Look at this dragon head. It has like a hound dog head. I thought that was so interesting. I never noticed that before, but I guess maybe he was right. Do dragons have dog heads? Do they? Is that something we're all going to figure out together? Maybe. If you weren't here last week, it was kind of a thing. Boom. Got a few more pictures here. Thought this one was really sick. This is a way later in time Russian print. You can tell it's a print because of how the big flat colors are. But I thought it was pretty cool. Again, we got the dog-headed guys. This guy's pulling out this dude from the holy city. Ugh, that does not look good. But we're actually going to use this dogman type figure. These guys are getting bitten. Everyone's getting bitten in the head. That is not good. No one likes that. But it is a pretty cool picture. This is like from a piece of Muslim art, but I thought it was interesting because the caption was like the evil ruler Gog, but he doesn't look that evil here. He's actually holding a flower, so I'm going to question that design choice for sure. Same deal here, really simple city. I like this kind of like simple medieval style city. Same deal here. Now here's the really weird thing. I was looking up, I was like, why are these people painted in with dog heads and stuff? And I actually found this book that mentioned that there's a sync up between the belief in dog-headed creatures and these paintings of Gog and Magog, these like evil kind of like end times, like apocalyptic rulers and stuff. So just going to check this out really quick. They're called cynocephalic beings. We'll talk about it a little bit more, but some of you have probably seen the images of Saint Christopher, who has a dog head also. Let's see. In general, the term cynocephali was used with the following meanings: a wild people, possibly living on the edge of the known world or in remote areas of one's native land, actual historical enemies such as the Turks, and demons or degenerate human beings. The common trait shared by the Gog and Magog tradition and the belief in cynocephali is that in both cases, a wild and half-human race is described. For example, in a 16th century Russian manuscript about the apocalypse, Gog and Magog are depicted with dog heads. Serbs and Croats believe that cynocephali lived in caves where the day does not dawn and the sun does not shine, or in a dark land. So there's also these folk beliefs about these like dog-headed people. The elements of the original story about Gog and Magog can also be detected in the tale of a Croatian region where a bishop threw the king of the dog-headed people into a dark cave at the foot of the Velebit Mountains, which he then surrounded with a thick wall. What does that mean? It's just a weird time. All right, cool. And we're back. I'm going to pull up the chat really quick. Nice. Yeah, dog man, I know. So the funny thing is that, so we're going to get to painting. Oh, actually, I'll talk about this while I just throw down the ruler situation right now. But yeah, the funny thing is that on top of all that, I got a dog, right? We did the dog-headed dragon thing last week. But then also, I've been listening to talks about the cryptid dog man. So I was like, what is the universe trying to tell me right now? I had this weird moment where I was sitting at my desk and I was thinking about Saint Christopher, who's this saint that's sometimes depicted with a dog head. Well, I need a way thicker line than that. Who's depicted with a dog head. I was thinking about the dog man, who's like a Bigfoot style cryptid that we'll probably talk about later. I was looking at these pictures of these dog-headed people in this manuscript where like I really did not expect to find them. And I was like, what is the universe trying to tell me? What do you want me to know? But I couldn't figure it out. I just want to get a nice thick black line. Sorry. Should have prepped the materials beforehand, but I didn't. So that's what we're going to be painting. I want to get the scene of like this holy city, this kind of like holy encampment with some of the references to what we just looked at. Some of the imagery. Some I didn't talk about, but that I will get to. And yeah, I think it's going to be really dope. The universe wants you to be thinking about heckin' tacos. Yeah, then there's the Reddit like, oh, the dogs. Yeah, we're not gonna take it there. And I'm also doing, in terms of picture making, so that was hitting the symbolism and stuff pretty hard. In terms of the picture making, though, I am going to be using rectangular format. I guess it's just so perfect for the rectangular screen situation. But I really never, ever do that. But I'm going to try. I'm going to experiment with it. We're doing new things here. Okay, so in terms of starting this picture, what I really want to start with is one of the dopest images, which is I want the hands of this angel coming down right here, and I want a chain, and I want it to be binding Satan in the top of the picture above the holy city. So that's what we're going to start with right now. I was thinking about penciling it out, but honestly, I kind of just want to jump in and go for it. So let's do it. I was also thinking about colors. Maybe I thought we'd maybe push the colors a little bit more than we normally do. So I'm going to be thinking about that also. I want to get some more reds going on, honestly. I feel like we've been floating in the very like blue, brown, manuscript-y department, but let's just get some reds going. So I'm going to paint in the angel's arms with this like Venetian red. It's like this Pompeii like clay red, like he's wearing this like red robe. And right now I'm kind of torn right off the bat if I'm going to make the lines with indigo, which is dark blue, or black. But I'm thinking with the subject matter, normally I would use indigo because if you don't use black lines, it kind of lets the color like come together and merge together a lot more. If you use black, then it's like a lot more stark and the colors are set against this black. They're set against this, well, the darkest color possible. But let's go with black. Normally I would use indigo, but let's try the black out. I never really use straight black. When you do oil painting, like if you studied in like a 1800 style atelier, classical oil painting, you would never use, well, in the beginning at least, you wouldn't use like straight up black like that. So I never really do it, but if we're going medieval style, I think we can get away with it. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to paint in the angel's head, and I want to get this kind of like, again, very medieval, like top-down view of the angel going on. Maybe I'll regret doing the black, but maybe I won't. Let's see how it goes. And I want to make sure I leave a lot of room. Actually, I'm going to bring the camera down a little bit because I want to. Boom. So I'm going to paint the angel's head in here, And his arms are going to be coming down out to the sides, and I want enough room so you can see the devil is bound up there. So I'm going to put his head pretty high up. And I might even paint in one of these like lateral halos around the top of his head. You really got two options when it comes to the halo. Yeah, cool. You can paint in a circle, like an oval sitting above his head, or you can go the flat, medieval, big round. So we'll see how we're gonna do that. And I'm just gonna paint in the arms like this. Just kind of want the arms like straight up coming out. Boom. Perfect. Boom. Nice. And in some of the commentary, it was saying that the chains the angel used, it's kind of like obvious, but they're symbolic of God's power. I thought that was cool. Chains are kind of a weird symbol. I just wrapped up this Arma Christi image, this image of the tools of the Passion. It's called the Weapons of Christ. It's kind of a medieval art motif, but it goes beyond that also, of all the things that were basically used by Christ to like go through the Passion. And chains are one of them. And as I was painting it, I was going in and painting like every link in the chains. And I was like, man, chains are like really interesting, you know? I was like, they bind you, they're like kind of make you like a slave, I guess, kind of, but they're also kind of like necessary for life in like a weird way. I don't know, like links in a chain. It's like there's like a lot to unpack there. Perfect. Someone said red rose made me think of Satan because of children's picture Bibles I had as a kid. Yeah, actually it's interesting you say that because I'm actually not going to paint in Satan as red here. I'm going to use a different color for a particular reason. It's kind of an old school like Renaissance thing, but that's kind of my plan right here. And I'm going to use this kind of like earthy color. I also just wrapped up this angel print. I gave them these really bright halos. I suppose they are beings of light, right? But sometimes I think it's cool to use unexpected ways of depicting these theological themes. It can have a really like powerful effect. One of my favorite paintings I ever saw in person was, I should say unexpectedly, I guess, was this Annunciation at the Philadelphia Art Museum. I lived there for a little while. And it's actually a really good museum. If anyone's in Philly, go check out your art museum if you haven't been there yet. And it's a big, kind of like really well-built museum. I used to go there all the time when I lived there. And you turn this corner in this room. It's like this dark room. And there's this Annunciation painting. But the thing is, the Annunciation is painted as Mary is this kind of like poor peasant girl cooped up in the corner in the middle of the room. Yeah, Satan's going to be blue. Yeah, exactly. And Mary's like really scared and frightened in the corner. But the angel coming is literally just this like full vertical beam of light, like exploding in the room. Like there's no human figure or anything in it. It's just this vertical beam of light. And it had such an impression on me. I saw it and I was like, wow, it's awesome. And I couldn't stop looking at it. I was with a bunch of people, and you know, you're with a bunch of people in an art museum, and they're kind of just walking through, stumbling through, like joking about stuff and looking at stuff. But I was really transfixed. It's like really the only word for it. And after that, you know, if you're a musician and you hear a piece of music that really like stops you in your tracks, you probably want to unpack why. And I really did think a lot about why it had such like a profound effect on me. And I think that showing theological themes in like an atypical way can be very powerful. Like you just said, actually, someone just said in the chat. You know, you saw this book as a kid, and then that made like a really big impression on you, right? So all of us have like images like that, either from pop culture or from being kids and stuff like that. And I think subverting that or changing that up is like very powerful. Chains, do I want to use straight gray? I kind of don't, but I'm gonna go for it anyway, because I want to maybe get a little bit of an atypical color scheme going on here. I'm gonna try and not use my typical colors. And I'm going to go straight up like manuscript painting style for the chains. I'm just going to make it a link, and then a lateral link, and then a link, and then a turned link, and a link. Should have left more room in between, but I wanted to make sure I had room for the city on the bottom, so I'm cool with it. Boom. Nice. Like how that looks already. And I'm probably just going to put the devil's head right in there in blue. Yeah, exactly. Fritz said, see, Fritz, this is why I made you a mod in the chat. Yeah, the devil is blue, rendered as blue often because he is, what I heard is that he is cold. He's far from the warmth of God's light. So he's like the coldest, darkest being in the universe. And actually in the Duomo in Florence, not the Duomo. It's in the baptistry that's outside the Duomo, in case anyone really cares. He's painted in blue there. It's in a mosaic, and there's a huge blue devil there, and it looks really awesome. It's very like Renaissance style in a way, but really it's medieval. You don't really see it much in Renaissance art. All right, so I'm going to paint the devil in. I'm using this really cold blue. It's called Prussian blue. I have the other blues like cobalt blue, which I often use, and ultramarine, but I often use those for like Virgin Mary's coat, and since this is kind of like an evil blue, I guess I thought I would use a different blue here. And I want it to be opaque, translucent, because I really want you to be able to see the blue. So I'm watering it down a lot, and I'm trying to just get just the liquid on it, not like all the heavy paint, but I just want to throw it down in like a wash. And I'm kind of torn about how I want to do this. I could put in like the lump. I think I'm just going to put in like the lump head with the horns, and then we'll paint in like these yellow eyes on the devil. I think that'll be really sick. Boom. Alright, nice. I'll just throw down this kind of like watercolor cold blue. It looks nice and cold. It's a very like icy color, so this is perfect. And I'll probably paint in a face on the angel. I don't want to have it be too like modern looking. We'll get the big horns in. Yeah, there we go. Nice. Perfect. It's almost like electric blue. It might not even be dark enough, but we'll see. I think it'll be good once we get everything else going. Boom. And I really wanted to look more into like the theological significance of the devil being like bound for 1,000 years and then let out. I don't really know how that fits into like the time frame or like what I'm experiencing in my life right now, but kind of torn. I kind of want to make it bluer, but I also like how it is. I'm going to put this like dark shadow on him so his face is like lit up by like the angel's halo. That's what I'm going to do. Yeah. That looks dope. Maybe there's too much contrast there, but I kind of like it. Give him a little form. Maybe I'll just come in and paint the whole thing in. Perfect. We'll give yeah, that looks better actually. Cool. We'll give the angel kind of a halo, and then we'll bounce out of this upper area. And right now what I'm deploying is one of my favorite, I don't want to call it a trick, it's pretty basic actually, but for colors I really like, I kind of use this phrase a lot, especially if I'm like instructing people in art. Not that I'm doing that with you guys right now. I guess kind of I am. But I think discrete manifestations of the primary colors are always really good. This isn't very discrete, but the angel's wearing red. We got the blue devil. So I'm thinking that putting this yellow halo around the angel will make it really pop a lot. But I kind of have to put the wings in before I do that actually. So I'm just going to throw down a little bit of this like yellow light. I use the cadmium yellow. So I like mentioning the color names so people that watch this a lot can get used to talking about pigments instead of just like generic names for colors. So I like using the cadmium yellow. That's like school bus yellow. It's the warm yellow I have, as opposed to the lemon yellow, which is like a cool yellow. It's actually the color of a lemon. That's why it has that name. Oh. Yeah, this is perfect. Nice. Maybe we'll just even have like some of the light just like pouring out like from the angel's body. Like it won't be totally contained like as a halo. Perfect. Okay, poking to the chat a little bit. My audio is too low. Maybe I'm talking too low. I always kind of like forget that I'm just in my room, so I'll talk louder. But if it's still too low in a minute or two, I'll turn it up. But I think I was just talking low. Got into thinking about the devil and the angel and stuff. And also I keep turning away from the mic. Normally I have my really nice like fancy mic, but I have to get a new cord for it, so I'm using this different mic right now. Cole said, I really enjoyed your talk with Jonathan as well as the image you two made. Thanks, dude. That's awesome. Oh, you said also may God bless you and your family. That's dope, man. Yeah, that went really well. It was really cool. It's really funny because, you see these people online and you like post alongside them, and maybe you watch some of their videos and you see what they're posting and stuff like that. But then I do an interview with them and it's like, oh, I'm actually meeting this person now. Like now it's like I'm hanging out with him. Like, I haven't seen a lot of people in a long time, but it's like I just hung out with Jonathan like for an hour doing that show. So it's kind of cool. Sometimes I think about bringing people on here. I don't know. Maybe like once or twice it would be cool. Kind of change things up. Although I guess they'd just be talking to me while I'm painting. It's also funny because he used the video from one of my shows to put on while I was talking with him, which like I'm totally cool with, whatever. It's like his YouTube channel. But it's funny because it looks like I'm just painting while I'm talking to him, which I guess would be like kind of rude. Like if I did like a Skype call with someone and I'm just hardcore painting while I'm talking to them. Okay, I'm not sure how I want to handle the angel's face. We'll come back and put a face in with the angel and the devil and stuff like that. So there's also a part in the second part of Ezekiel that I didn't read, where he talks about he'll take the hands of the warriors and break their arrows and break their bows in their hands. So what I was thinking was that to contrast with this situation here, I'm going to have these two hands coming in, and we're going to have a bow that's broken. Well, we'll have a bow, because if a bow is broken, I'm worried it won't actually read as a bow. So we'll have a bow in one hand, and then we'll have like a broken arrow in the other hand over here. And just to push the symbolic, like evil theme and stuff, I'm just going to put the hands in black. I kind of just want to push it. Every painting we've done so far has been so on point, frankly, if I can like hype up my own work. I mean, I thought they were on point, that I kind of just want to take a risk. So we're just going to change it up a little bit. I'm going to throw in these dark hands. And I'm not even going to really have them like fully gripping the stuff. I'm going to have them just out, like holding it, almost like they just dropped it, like God just like took forth these like items from their hands. I think that'll be cool. Do you combine the warm yellow with blues with cool yellow? Do you combine the warm yellows with blues and cool yellows with warm reds when you want to bump up the discomfort factor in art, or does it just not really read well? I wouldn't say discomfort. It's more that temperature is kind of like the forgotten, not forgotten, but temperature is like the unknown factor, I think, when mixing colors or making a painting. I think that's one thing a lot of people like don't think about is like the temperature of their colors. So actually, I wouldn't really say warm and cool makes a discomfort effect. It actually is, sometimes you need it in a picture. I guess you could probably manipulate it to create discomfort, but actually I think the interplay of those two is part of what makes like a successful painting. Especially if you're doing like a realistic painting, like a still life or something like that. The cool colors kind of naturally, it's almost like the Doppler effect. I think it's called the Doppler effect in, you know, when you're using a telescope, like red shift and blue shift, I guess is what I'm looking for. It's not really the Doppler effect, but I'm trying to think of like a scientific analogy off the cuff. But cool colors look like they're receding into the distance. They look like they're going away from you. And then warm colors kind of look like they are coming forward. So if I was doing a still life painting like a peach or something on a rag, or, you know, an apple on a table or something, I would utilize that principle. If I had colors way in the back that I wanted to seem like they were really far back, like behind the apple, I would use some cool colors. And then on the apple itself, I'd probably pump up the warm colors and stuff like that. That looks really cool. Got this kind of like evil looking like claw hand going on over here. And I'm going to paint the same thing on the other side too. Yeah, Lord Narwhal said it could be cool having someone on who knows what they're talking about. Yeah, that would be a huge change of pace, right? I'm just kidding. And who could weigh in on what you're painting. Yeah, it would be cool maybe to get like a theologian or something to come on and talk about stuff like that. I don't know. I mean, every show interviews people, so I don't think I really need to do that, but it would be kind of cool. So I'm going to get these two like dark hands. And sometimes when I'm painting like evil looking hands, I like to play up the kind of like weird deformed like claw factor. Hands, like faces, are something your body is so programmed into seeing that honestly, as long as you get like 4 fingers on there, it doesn't really matter. The viewer will read it as a hand. So I kind of like to play up the like anguished or like kind of deformed looking factor when I paint these in. So you can kind of see I'm just dropping in the fingers. I want them to look like kind of uncomfortable, almost like they're kind of like a claw. In fact, I might just leave the point on this like pinky over here. Maybe. And the black paint is so thick, I have to like water it down so much. And I'll make them holding a bow and arrow. Cool. And then what I'm thinking is in the text it says that the God like brings down this flame and like encompasses the whole army. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to paint in these flames and the armies will like be in there. Honestly, as I'm painting these hands, I just got to talk about Dogman. Honestly, we're just going to kind of jump around a little bit in terms of all the topics we're hitting, but I was reading and listening to a lot of stuff about Dogman this week while I was working. I don't know if people know about Dogman. I don't know if it's just like weirdos that know about him or how popular it is, but it's pretty awesome. I first came across Dogman when I was going really hard into the missing 411 stuff, and there was this story that always stuck with me. That was some newspaper story from like the late 1900s, where this guy saw his daughter standing at the edge of a river, and he saw like a dog man, like a human with like a dog head standing over by her, or something like that, some kind of like werewolf-esque creature. And he ran over to her, and the dog person jumped in the river and like swam away. Uh, and then when he asked her about it, she said like, yeah, there was this like doggy here, and he was like feeding me berries, and he like took care of me while I was lost in the woods and stuff. And just something about it was so creepy, and it really stuck with me. And I don't know if you're familiar with Missing 411 and David Paulides' work, but it's pretty awesome. And just the fact that he gave credence, not credence, like obviously anyone can make up a newspaper story. I mean, we all know that from like today. But it's kind of like stuck with me. I thought it was really interesting. And oddly enough, I won't say who they are, obviously, but I know two people, one person online and one person otherwise. I know two people that have actually told me that they've seen this like dog man. So in case you don't know, it's basically like this. It's a cryptid, so it's like Bigfoot. I'm gonna paint this bow in, and then I'll paint the arrow in. So it's this cryptid, and it's kind of like Bigfoot. I honestly think of it as like underground Bigfoot, not underground like literally beneath the earth, but underground like less well known. So it's like Bigfoot, but it's a dog man. It's a man with a dog head. And there's just something so creepy and weird about that image. You know, I kind of can kick on like different parts of my brain, and when I kick on like the Jungian symbolism part, that's just so interesting. Like humans and dogs have evolved alongside each other for so long that there's something about the combination of like the dog and human that really gets me. I talked a little bit last week, but I have this theory that like human hybrids are kind of like, so I'm going to paint in the string for this bow. Perfect. I'm going to paint in an arrow in the same color over here, and we'll kind of just keep this moving. I want to get this like swiftly looking dope. A lot of times we have this like J curve where like the whole first kind of hour maybe even is just like, oh, we're getting it, go. And then the last like third, like it looks really awesome. So I want to try and like bend that curve a little bit and see what we can make happening like as swiftly as possible. So anyway, yeah, and someone said Dogman Encounters Radio is really good in the chat. Yeah, that's really awesome. Everyone should check that out, Dogman Encounters Radio. The last episode he did was kind of like a compilation of like the best of, and I would really highly recommend checking that out. It's so weird to me because it kind of just hits all these different buttons. Like I mentioned before, there's Saint Christopher, and he's sometimes depicted with a dog head, and I know there are like, you know, explanations people give for why that's the case, where it could be like linguistic or mythological and all this stuff, but there's just something about it that just hooked me. I mean, I can't really say more than that, and all the details are really creepy. I think that there is also something interesting about perusing that landscape of, you know, mental images and things that happen to people that kind of syncs up with, you know, what we're doing here in terms of the theological imagery, and then also you know, weird paranormal stuff, everything really, art, everything. It kind of syncs up with everything where, you know, images, especially when you combine them, it's not like I kind of really struggle to explain this, but I actually do think it's like an intelligent thought. It's not like the landscape is neutral. It's like if you would think that once you poked into your mind and started like combining these images, that, you know, it would almost be like working with like, you know, Legos, where all the Legos fit together and it kind of doesn't really matter, right? You know, you can fit, you know, a 4x4 onto a 2x1 onto a 3x3, and it doesn't really matter. They all fit together and they all just kind of make these like weird shapes. But it's not really like that. It's almost like the images, it's more like chemistry, where if you combine different things from the periodic table, you get these like different reactions. I think it kind of hints that there's something underlying their nature that I still don't understand. Even after all this time doing art, I really still don't get it in like any capacity, honestly. I mean, I get it a little bit more now, but I still really don't. Like, you know, if I just combine like random images, if I was like, oh, it's a jellyfish with a ladybug on its head, and they're swimming through a green river. It's kind of like, okay, like that's kind of interesting, I guess, but it doesn't resonate in the same way. There's certain combinations of images that just resonate. It's like they're all lined up as like little bells, and when you put some of them together, you can knock them, and you can hear some of the bells, like on a sitar. Some of the bells resonate, and their resonant frequency kicks off other bells, and then they start to resonate together. But unlike on a sitar, on a musical instrument, it makes like logical sense. You can say like, oh well, this string is tuned to A, this string is tuned to A, so when you sound one, it sounds the other. But when you're dealing with like images from the mind, whether it's whatever you're dealing with, when you're dealing with visual images from the mind, and like they have like a theological and mystical and paranormal or archetypal or whatever it is significance, I still don't really fully understand why some of the images resonate with other ones. It's honestly one of the mysteries I feel like I've grappled with the most over the whole time I've been doing art, which has been a really, really, really long time. You see an old picture of certain things together, and it resonates so deeply with the human soul, and it's really interesting to explore why. So much so that you can go into Hot Topic, and wow, I really just dated myself. Like the first time I ever did that, and no one goes to Hot Topic. I was thinking of Urban Outfitters. You can go to Urban Outfitters, and they're selling all this like mystical, esoteric posters and stuff, and it resonates with people really deeply. But it's really interesting to explore why. It's clearly not arbitrary. It's clearly not just random, because then, like I said, you can't just combine like random things like, oh, it's half an orange with a bee on top, and it's on fire, and it's all getting eaten by a swan. Like, yeah, that's kind of cool, but it doesn't really resonate in the same way as like if you tear an image out of the Bible or out of like mythology from the past. It's something about it, man. I know there's lots of different explanations, but I feel like the Dog Man is one of those things to me, especially now. It's just like a really interesting image that resonates, and I'm not really sure why. Okay, that's a cool little detour. So I'm going to paint in the eyes on the devil right here. I'm going to put them in orange. I'm going to put them in bright orange. I was going to use yellow, but to be honest with you, some of you guys know this. I got jaundice a really long time ago. Not that long ago, really. A few times. And I really don't like using yellow eyes in my art. I feel like it's going to like call forth like that experience back into reality. So I'm not going to... I don't make any eyes yellow in my art ever anymore, and I probably never will. So, all right, boom. Nice. We got those lit up orange eyes over there. That's tight. Have you heard of this strange occult device called a mask? Yes, I used to be very obsessed with studying mask use from like different cultures for sure. Okay, I want to keep us moving, so I'll come back to the face on the angel. What I'm going to do right now is when we first started the show, I used to kind of wrap things up going from the top to the bottom, so that's what we're going to do right now. I'm going to paint in a sun over here, I'm going to paint in a moon over here, and then we'll move down, and we will start doing the second kind of tier. We'll kind of come down like that way. I really want to get these flames in, because that's when it's going to start looking really dope. And I'm just going to throw down a big circular yellow sun. I'm just going to do it over here. The truer the image is, the more it resonates. Yeah. I think that's really what draws people to alchemical imagery and stuff like that. Most of you guys, I'm sure if you're here, you have at least, even the most casual of casual interests in like esoteric images and stuff like that. But I think we kind of take that for granted. We're like, well, yeah, of course. Like, of course, esoteric imagery is cool. But I think there's an interesting reason why that, like I said, I don't think I fully understand. I'm not sure anyone really fully understands it. Like with the alchemical images, it's really interesting because everyone thinks they're cool. If you've never seen alchemical images, go check them out. I mean, frankly, it's like part of the reason why, I think it's the main reason why people are still fascinated into alchemy today. Personally, I don't know if it's a bold claim or not, but that is what I think. And if you dig into it, though, it's interesting because we view the images in a context they were never meant to be viewed in. Honestly, if you're here, you must have seen them. I'm sure you've seen like alchemical images where it's something like weird and enigmatic. Like, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can look up Paracelsus drawings. That's a really good example, where it'll be like a crown growing in between two trees that are cut in half, and in the distance there's like a city with a cube above it or something like that. And everyone knows that you're supposed to read deeper into the images, but the images aren't meant to be isolated. They're never meant to be viewed as like a singular image. So if you're ever looking at alchemical imagery, the thing is it's supposed to be looking at it like I don't want to say like a comic strip, but you're supposed to be looking at alchemical imagery in terms of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you see it cohesively as a set. But no one does that anymore, ever. They just look at 1 or 2 images. They don't view them as a set even. And then they expound on what it means. Like, oh, well, there's this red bird in this jar, and the red bird is, the part of the psyche that is part of nature. So you have to take this red bird part of your psyche and like distill it and stuff. So it's just interesting to me that even those images taken completely out of their context, if you want to call it that, have that like resonatory, is that a word I just made up, quality. And maybe that's part of what drew me into like the prophet visions in the Bible and the apocalyptic visions in the Bible. I think that's kind of like the ultimate example. I mean, if you can read the book of Revelations and not think the images in there are cool, like I really don't know what to tell you. Really don't know what to tell you then. Okay, I'm going to throw down some kind of like blue sky. I do want to get a little bit of that medieval flavor in, so I'm going to use this cobalt blue. Kind of get like a night sky element going on. I might use the cerulean over here. Cobalt blue, I call this, this is kind of like Virgin Mary blue light. And then the ultramarine blue is like Virgin Mary blue dark. Boom. Yeah. So yeah, I want to make an image of St. Christopher with the dog head. I think that's really, really, really awesome. I think it's just in Orthodoxy that they have that, or in the East, I should say. I don't think they have it in Catholicism. But it's pretty cool. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly throw down... I might throw some stars up here or something up here, but for now I kind of want to just lay it down. Nice. So I'll throw down the... This is very like Book of Hours. If you guys know what a Book of Hours is, these like medieval prayer books using this like straight blue sky like that. I like it. Boom. So yeah, I was thinking about these hands with Dogman because one of the creepiest parts of it is... before I get off that whole topic though, you know what's a perfect example of everything I was just saying that a lot of people in our sphere are into is H.P. Lovecraft. It's a perfect example. People resonate with H.P. Lovecraft's work because it has that like, there's something true about these images, quality to it, which is very, very interesting to me because it's not theology. I mean, he wrote it recently. You could say that it has like old imagery in it if you wanted to make that argument, but that's why his work resonates with people, in my opinion. It has that feeling of like, I think even if like, frankly, like normal people that aren't thinking like more deeply about it, it has that quality of like, yeah, there's something like true about this in like a weird way that we like can't really articulate. If you guys haven't read H.P. Lovecraft's work, you should definitely read it. It really has that quality in like the strangest way. Call of Cthulhu. It's even popular in like modern like occult circles and stuff, even though they, know it's like modern and wasn't written for that purpose. Okay, I'm gonna throw in some night sky over here. Let's all bust out the ultramarine. Let's bust out the blues. Let's get it going. Boom. So yeah, I really got that feeling when I was looking up these like physical descriptions like of the Dogman and stuff. When it's described, and we're going to paint some not dogmen like the Cryptid, but dogmen like the cynocephali. I think that's what they're called, the dog-headed creatures from like mythology that we looked at before. When they're described, their build is like very interesting because they obviously have the dog head, right? But then they have the man body. Sometimes there's like different kinds. But the ones with the man body, the distance from their elbow to their hands is like extra abnormally long. They have these like super, super long arms. And a lot of people have these stories of seeing these like black coyotes. That's like another really creepy part, like seeing these black dogs. And they'll look kind of like normal like black dogs, like coyotes or something like out in the wild. But then they'll see these dogs stand up, like on 2 legs. And I heard a lot of people that had those stories. Not just on Dogman Radio, but like other stories and things like that. And there was just something so, like, again, it has that quality where, like, of course I'm not going to hear something and be like, this is true because it makes me feel a certain way. But it has that, like, resonatory quality where I don't really know what to make of it. Has a very, like, Native American, like, religion feel, honestly. Boom. Throw down the dark blue up there. Perfect. Perfect. It's looking dope. And we'll just get the blue down here, and then I'm going to throw in these big flames. And then what else is interesting, because like I said, it's like all these connections, they kind of like overwhelm you in a way. Because I heard this story, one of the stories was really crazy, about this guy encountering these like black dogs in the wilderness that then like eventually disappeared. And it's kind of like hellhounds. You guys know what hellhounds are? They're like these hellish, devilly black dogs. And I don't know, I feel like that it used to happen to me a lot when I was more into the paranormal, like in theology, like, you know, people like build on each other, and you always kind of know where you're standing at least a little bit, like even if you know, are reading something you disagree with, or, you know, trying to feel things out, you like know where you're standing. But when you start getting into like the more, I guess you could say paranormal, I don't really like using that word, but that kind of stuff, sometimes you're just left holding these connections and you're like, what do I do with this? Like hellhounds, uh, people seeing these things in the woods, dog-headed creatures in mythology, Greek people and in antiquity talking about these dog-headed cannibals, and I'm finding these paintings of dog-headed men, and Saint Christopher has a dog head, and there's even like this weird painting of Jesus like talking to these dog-headed people. And like, I'm not saying that happened, but it's kind of just weird. And I just feel like you're left in this kind of place. I feel like that's kind of why it has like schizo energy. Is like you're left in this place of like, this all means something, but what exactly does it mean? Okay, nice. Cool. We'll go back in and add some stars and stuff up there. We'll figure it out. But I want to get the flames going in right now. So I'm going to paint in these big flames. I kind of want them like cupping and like holding everything else that's going on. I really have two options right now. Here's the thing. I talked about trying to change up the color situation, and I have this alizarin crimson. Normally, if I was painting fire, I would just drop in straight up the cadmium scarlet. I use this as vermilion in my palette, and have it be like super bright red. But I feel like I want to tone it down a little bit and just have it be like a darker red with the flames coming in. Like I said before, really warm colors, really bright colors, they'll draw the eye to it. So if I feel like if I have these super red flames coming in, it kind of cages me in a lot in terms of what I can do in the center. Because if I have these like 100% bright, 100% warm, huge red, very interesting flamey shapes coming down, your eye is going to be pulled to them. And then what I do in the center has to be kind of loud or competing with them for attention. So I'm honestly wondering if I can get away with making them a little bit darker. So I'm going to use this color, alizarin crimson. This is the cool red that I have in my palette. And the thing about it is that it's really translucent. I haven't talked about this in a while, but some of the paints are more translucent than others. Oh, it's got pigment everywhere. Some of the paints are more translucent than others. This is a really, really, really transparent color. So even though that color that you're seeing right there is perfect, that's actually pretty much exactly the color I would want to lay down right now. It's way too see-through. If I just lay it down, it'll look really, frankly, like cheap. It'll look like cheap paint because it'll be all streaky and you'll be able to see the paper coming through it in a way that I don't want. So I'm going to mix it with this cadmium scarlet, and I'm just going to see how it goes. That's probably too much, but let's just see how it goes right now. Someone said, Dogman Boston Dynamics connection. Yo, you know what the real connection is? Isn't H.P. Lovecraft from Boston? H.P. Lovecraft? Boston Dynamics connection? Oh my god, it's all making sense. Someone said you're amazing at keeping up good topics. Hey, thanks, man. If every podcast like this was like this regardless of the subject, life would be better. Thanks, man. That's really nice. Yeah, you know, honestly, I don't want to be like, oh, well, yes, I am. Thanks. I have thought a lot about like public speaking and done a lot of like public speaking and stuff like that. So that might be why. I think part of the trick to, I don't want to give it away, but I think part of the trick is, you know, it's kind of like I'm thinking like with you guys while I'm talking, even though you probably just feel, even if you're contributing in the chat, you probably just feel like you're just like throwing stuff out in the chat and maybe I'm not even seeing it, but you know, there is like a dialogue there, and I think that's probably what makes it interesting. I think if you do any like speaking stuff like this, you kind of either have to have like a script, or you just have to be like actively like thinking on the fly. But I do kind of map it out a little bit. Obviously, I'm not reading off a script right now, but I was thinking about, you know, what I would talk about with you guys later, and Dogman, dog-headed creatures, Gog, evil empires. I was like, yeah, it'll be dope. For the flames, are we going to thin brush being clinical, or does it make sense to pull out the bazooka? Nice. You are using the show terminology. I love it. Ugh, the bazooka. You know, because you said that, we are probably, maybe we'll see. Let's see. I can't really tell. It's kind of like we have two options. The thing is, while I feel like it feels like it would make sense to go bigger, bigger could be like this. Doesn't seem that much bigger, but we also do have, this is the real bazooka. I don't even know if we've used this on, actually we used this a few times for ink on the show. The thing about it though is that I really want those crisp flame edges. So I'm going to start with this. We're going, if this is like a weapon, it's not sniper, it's not bazooka. This is kind of like, I feel like it's probably like an M4. It's like a very middle of the road. I feel like you can get away with a lot of things with it. I don't really know that much about guns, so. And what I'm going to do is I kind of just want to have, because I have to paint over them. What I'm doing is, it's not dumb because I'm doing live painting, but if I was doing it for like, you know, some like finished product that was going to go in like someone's home or like on my wall or something, I would paint in what's in front of what's behind the flames first and then paint the flames on top of them. But since I'm painting live with you guys, I don't want to do that. It doesn't really make sense logistically, so I have to just keep in mind that I'm going to be painting up against this edge that I'm laying down here. So that's part of why if you've seen me paint flames before, I always have them turned up, but here I've turned the flames down. Boom. Someone said, tangential to Dogman, but what are your thoughts on Mothman? Oh, dude, I feel like I'm opening up the Cryptid folder again, and it feels so good. Mothman's pretty crazy, man. I was fascinated by that story when I encountered it a few years back. Oh, you encountered the story. If anyone in the chat has seen a cryptid, feel free to go off. I will allow us to fully derail to talk about your cryptid encounter. Anyone in the chat, that's an open invitation anytime. We can take it there anytime. Yeah, man, the Mothman stuff is really crazy. Well, the thing is, the cryptid stuff gets to kind of another level for me. So now also, just to keep it with the painting, I'm going to turn the flames in the back up a little bit because I'm probably not going to paint too much in there. And then I'll paint in the stuff, and we'll see if we want to turn the flames like curling up this way. I'll have some room laterally to like have them snaking up, or whatever we painted, I can maybe put flames in them, but for now this will be a good border. Well, for me, part of the cryptid stuff really escalates when you get to a point where people are seeing it not in like the middle of nowhere. It's one thing for someone to be like, yeah, I was driving home on this lone country road at night and there was no one around for miles in either direction, and I saw a strange shadowy figure. Can you believe it? And you're kind of like, yeah, I can. I actually totally can believe that. It seems like the place you would see something like that. But it gets to be another level when people are seeing it like in a city or like not out in the middle of nowhere. I kind of took a risk there with that flame curl, but I kind of like it. I normally wouldn't do that, but whatever. I kind of like it. Does anyone remember? Do you guys even remember in Chicago? Like a bunch of people saw Mothman like during the day, like a bunch of times. Do people remember that? That actually happened. It wasn't that long ago. I'm sure you can Google like Chicago dark creature sighting or Chicago Mothman sighting or something. It was like during the day in like very public areas with like a lot of witnesses. People saw it a few times. I mean, in my mind, it was like back to back to back to back a few times. Maybe it wasn't that many times, but that was pretty crazy. And I don't know if people were saying it was Mothman, but I feel like from the description, it was pretty obviously Mothman. So that was pretty nuts for me. Whenever I think of Mothman, I always want to bring that up because it makes me feel like I'm crazy that actually happened, and like people just don't talk about it. They're like, oh yeah, I guess it kind of just goes in the memory hole, like I said. But yeah, otherwise, I don't really know what to make of it. I mean, I feel like I have this baseline. This is kind of like my cliche. I'm sure if someone were to like make a Twitter account impersonating me, this would be like the cliche automatic post. But like I have this baseline of like, yeah, it's probably a demon, right? And then I kind of build up my understanding from there. So yeah, I mean, someone's like, I saw this creature with like huge dark wings and red eyes, and it's like, yeah, that's kind of what a demon is, right? But I think people mistakenly think of that as like an end. Like I shut the folder. Like I'm like, oh, it's a demon, like folder's shut. But it's not really like that, because then I have more questions about like why they're appearing to people and stuff like that. That was interesting. It was in Chicago because it's kind of such like a storied American city. It has like this weird past. There was a really famous serial killer there, and I only bring that up because now there's so many murders there. I feel like seeing this like weird demonic creature like during the day. Damn, this flame looks tight right now. I am definitely pleased with how this turned out. Let's see if I have enough color to get the other flame in on the other side. I am going to go to the Mothman Museum eventually. It's nowhere near where I live. It's really, really far away, like multiple states away, but I do want to go there. I think it's in West Virginia. Maybe it's in Virginia. But I do want to go to the Mothman Museum. There's some guy always posting about a cryptid museum online, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go there, but it's in Oregon. I'm probably not going to go there anytime soon. Someone said they saw a cryptid. I'm down. I am down. Okay. I do want to read it, but I don't want to take away from the flames. I was a kid in my bed and I heard this vivid as hell laughing like the Joker. It wasn't a TV or anything because I was home alone. Then I looked out the window and saw this fucking terrifying figure. Nice. It was like a shaved dog. Dude, stop. Nice. It was like a shaved dog standing on its hind leg with red eyes. Wish I had more characters to describe that. Yeah, I mean, dude, that's literally what a dogman is. Literally. If you are not memeing, I mean, if you're memeing, I'm into it. I mean, if you want to just take me on a ride, you know, while we talk about the picture. But if you are serious, actually, you should hit up the guy from Dogman Encounters. I mean, I don't know how much more you have to say, but he literally runs a radio show all about people who have seen Dogman. And that sounds like exactly what it is. And there's people that call in with worse stories than that. So, okay, I'm going to paint in the back of this flame over here. The other thing that's cool about the Dogman stories is that, you know, I really was actually very... I still... The thing is, I don't like using the word paranormal. I would honestly still say that I'm not really into the paranormal because I feel like what that conjures up is not really what I'm into. Because usually if someone's like, yeah, I have this story where I saw this, like, you know, if I'm not going to go on like Reddit and find some post where someone's like, yeah, I saw Bigfoot, and read it and be like, oh, wow, this person really saw Bigfoot. I mean, I'm not like calling them a liar, but of course it would just be very naive for me to go online and read things and be like, that's obviously true. And for a long time, I think that was my block with the paranormal because I was like, well, like I just said, I'm not saying it's fake, but if I have nothing to go on except like a random person's story, then who could be, you know, doing it just to get attention or because they think it's fun or whatever, I'm not going to start like incorporating that into my worldview. But then a few things happened where I knew some people that had some like paranormal experiences. That was really interesting. I started seeing how it synced up with like certain aspects of theology. That was really interesting. There were certain mass sightings and things like that. That also kind of turned the tide for me. Missing 411, obviously everyone knows, was like really big for me. And how that syncs up with like Seraphim Rose style stuff. So I really did get sucked in, and then when I started knowing people that were having experiences with stuff like that, it was really, really big game changer. Just because I was like, you know, of course I have an inkling that the stuff is real, but, you know, before that like I said, I'm not going to integrate it into my worldview. The weird thing about it is that once you start getting into it, I feel like, and maybe other people know that you're into it, people that you know will tell you about stuff that happened to them that they otherwise would never bring up. This guy I knew for years told me this crazy story. You know, I was talking to him about saints, and you know, he knows I'm into weird stuff. Let's just say I hadn't seen him in a few years. He knows I've always been into weird stuff, and I was explaining, you know, kind of how it's led me to like this way more, infinitely more like theological position, and you know, saints, and that I kind of believe in all that stuff now, in a specific sense, but also in the most general sense. And he told me this story where his girlfriend went to what's that place called? Chichen Itza. His girlfriend went to Chichen Itza, and she came back. I'm kind of telling the story backwards, but who cares? You would see where this is going anyway. And she got this weird like rash on her body, and you know, you guys don't know her, so it's not too much information, but she had this weird rash on her body, and she didn't know what to do about it, and it wasn't going away. And they knew this guy that was like one of these really weird, like, I guess you could say like fringe Christianity guys, like into really weird stuff, and maybe like not psychic, but kind of has that vibe. I don't know what I think about psychic, so I'm not saying he's really psychic or anything, but I'm just painting a picture of this dude, kind of a weirdo. And she told him about it because she knew he was like kind of a weird guy, and he was like, he unprompted, he didn't know that she went there, she didn't post any pictures on Facebook. He was like, oh, did you go like in the jungle recently? And she was like, yeah. And he was like, did you go to any like ancient sites? And she was like, yeah, I went to Chichen Itza. And he was like, when you were there, did you touch any stones? Did you touch anything at Chichen Itza? She said, yeah, I touched this like sculpture that was there. I guess you can touch stuff, or maybe there's just enough tourists, they just do whatever they want. And he was like, you picked up something there, and that's what's manifesting as this rash on your face. And he told her to print out from the computer these images of these two saints and hang them up in her bedroom, and that it would go away. And she did it, and she said it actually happened. And the only reason I'm telling you guys this is not only because it's a cool story, but like the two people that told me that are not Christian. They're not even like they're almost like, you know, I'm not like talking shit, but they're basically like, you know, pop atheists. Like I'm sure that they don't put any stock in like the theological stuff. Maybe the girl does actually. Maybe the girl does a little bit, but whatever. The point is that, you know, you start hearing stories like that, and it's pretty crazy. And then, you know, I'm hanging out with these people who I've known for like many, many, many years, just in a really casual setting. It's like, you have no reason to like lie to me. You know, I'm sure that you're telling me the truth of like how you experience the situation. Anyway, okay. Speaking of dogmen, so let's see how we want to lay this out a little bit. We kind of have two components that I want to drop in here. We're moving along well on time. Good, it's only been an hour 20. Perfect. So we have two kind of components that we got going on here. We're going to have the situation outside this city. I know I said it was an encampment and that had like a symbolic significance, but it also says the beautiful city, and I kind of want to use a city for reasons I'll explore in a minute. And then we have the creatures and stuff outside the city. Since this isn't like a direct literal illustration, I'm not like illustrating the scene that we talked about. I feel okay playing around with it a little bit. I'm not going to end up painting like a full army in, not only for time reasons. Honestly, I wouldn't really even consider that, but I just think it won't really look that good in terms of how it's all like laid out. I think it would be doper if we have these two kind of like evil figures on the outside, and then we have the city in the middle. So that's how we're going to do it. Definitely at least one is going to have a dog head for sure. Obviously, right? I mean, obviously. Let's just paint in the dog-headed figure here, and then we'll get the city in the middle. And when we hit the city, I want to read this passage about what the city represents as a symbol. Yo, we should hit the dog too, actually. Let's do that right now. Oh, we're doing it on the fly. Doing the show on the fly right now. So we're hitting the book of symbols right now. I'll move the painting for a second. Boom. I did not plan this, so I don't have a bookmark in the dog page. I plug this book all the time. If you're going to get one book that I plug on the show, this is a really good one to get. Water creatures, primordial creatures, snake, birds. These people should pay me to plug these books on the show. I know that someone's going to see this and pick up this book. Wild animals. There's a domestic animals section. One day, you know what we should do? People should read me numbers off the chat, and I'll go to that page in here, and we can like randomly create a painting. Okay, cow, cat. Come on, tell me dog is not the next thing. This is dog. Perfect. Let's see what it says about dog before we paint in this dog-headed creature right now. Someone said, I have a story my dad told me about him encountering a cryptid when he moved to upstate New York. Very weird because my father got into some weird native voodoo as a young adult. Yo, yeah, that's really common. And also upstate New York, people have a lot of stories from up there, for sure. Kind of goes with the Chicago thing that I said before. Like, a lot of stuff happened there, you know, be it colonial, and you have New York City like right downstream spiritually, but also it's like wilderness. Wilderness outside the city is always like a very powerful place. That happens all over the Western world, at least I can say for sure. I mean, like in Berlin, right, you have the Black Forest right outside the city. That's like literally like fairy tale central. And I would say partially it's because, you know, you have a wilderness surrounding an urban environment. So you have all the energy of the urban environment spilling out into this like liminal space of the so a space where boundaries are allowed to be crossed and things are allowed to play in this more like chaotic environment, which is the wilderness. I should do a picture like that. It's really cool, actually. Yo, super chat. Spice said, keep up the good work. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I humbly accept your super chat. Okay. Check out what it says about dog, and then we'll jump back in. Speaking of Native American stuff, so it says this person is Huichol. Huichol's a Native American tribe, from what I understand. I'm pretty sure, actually, so I'm way out of my league talking about this now, but I'm pretty sure the Huichol are the people that were like the peyote keepers. I think they were like the main like peyote tribe. I met someone that was affiliated with them a few times, actually. Maybe I'll tell that story later. There is a water over there, and where the soul of one who has died must pass. And there is a dog there, a little black dog with a white spot on its throat. And one must ask permission from that dog to pass, so that one may travel on to reach that other level, where those who have died are waiting, where those ancient relatives are living in their rancho. That's awesome. That's awesome. With the rising of the dog star, dog star is another aspect of the dog symbolism. The living are distinguished by the dog from the dead, for in truth everything withers that has not taken root. It says alchemical text. It's interesting, but also ambiguous. When I see stuff like that and it's not sourced somewhere, I'm kind of like, well, what does that even mean? One might imagine that humankind's first act upon standing and knowing was to tame and befriend the dog, for we have been intimately tied to our ultimate animal friend and ally for thousands of years. The uncanny superiority of his senses, his capacity to track a smell over immense distances, his sureness of direction, his keen feeling for truth of heart, has been our extension into realms where we could not venture unaided by his guidance. We can find what we have lost in the proverbial woods of the unknown. It's funny, I was just talking about that. And gain nurturance from the hunt. In some cultures, he was felt to commune with the spirit world. He has been willing to come into our world from his wolfish ancestry with a blossoming of unconditional love and devotion far surpassing our own. In doing so, the dog has assumed a central place in countless mythologies as a guide between the worlds of life and death, known and unknown, human and animal, and symbolically between the conscious mind and the wilderness of the unconscious psyche and the soul. That is true. But let's see if it says anything about dog-headed people. Like I said, I did not plan this. I'm actually pretty sensitive to kind of trying to plan stuff out and making sure I'm not like waffling around while I'm talking to you guys. But I didn't plan this. It doesn't say anything about dog-headed people though. But let's just read the end. Going from the beginning to the end has worked out pretty well with this book. Faust, despairing of an empty life of bookish but meaningless devotion, prays to die and asks for a guide to distant lands. Mephistopheles appears to him first as a stray black poodle, a symbol of his own disowned and homeless soul. Mephistopheles then then reveals himself as an evil, whose ultimate purpose was salvation. The dog initiates us into the infernal darkness, where, if he weren't also so endearing and true, we might never find our way. That's dope. How old is this dog sculpture? 300 BC. That's pretty good for BC, although it does say to 600 CE, so it could have been later, but that's pretty good for before 1000 AD. It's a pretty good dog sculpture. Okay. That was interesting. Honestly, it was really cool, but it was not really relevant because it was all about the positive symbolism of the dog. I can actually see my dog outside right now. She's right outside my window. That's awesome. Okay. So let's get this dog-headed person in. Let's get the city in. And in fact, what I'm thinking is maybe we'll just put in like a dog-headed warrior assailing the city. That'll be like the Gog Magog figure, and then we'll get the city going in over here. I kind of knew we'd more be talking about like the dog and Dogman and cryptids and stuff, but I wanted to jump off from the Gog and Magog thing. I thought that was pretty cool. Okay, so we're gonna paint in this hound-headed creature right now, some type of hound-headed warrior right now. Let's do it. Boom. So we're talking about paranormal experiences in the chat. I mean, I'm down. I have that Odilon Radon spider hanging on the wall of my apartment. Yeah, it's really good. Odilon Radon is really cool. Nice. It's the first time you checked this out at the show. That's cool, man. Thanks. Another weird thing that happened to me is meeting this Orthodox guy at work that invited me to a church right as I was researching Orthodoxy. The church had like less than 30 people in a city of 100,000. Yeah, dude, actually I read that because it's kind of funny. So I want to make sure I pick the right color for the dog head right now. In case this is the first time you're watching, there's a few different browns that I use. This raw umber, I thought this would be the color, but it's a little dead and heavy and sandy, so I actually don't want to use this. Instead of using the raw umber, I'm going to try this raw sienna, and you'll actually be able to see with them next to each other. I say this pretty much every time, but because I want you to know. I want you to confidently go to the art store and tell yourself, I remember Owen saying that the raw browns are yellow, like a raw egg. The yolk of a raw egg is yellow, and the burnt browns are red. So if you're buying colors and stuff like that, so you can actually see this is sienna, that's the pigment. This is umber, that's the pigment. This is the raw form, and then we have some of the burnt ones. I can lay them out later if you guys really want me to. Okay, so we're going to use this color. It might be a little bit too bright. I mean, I could mix them, but I don't know. I think I should just go for it. And I'm going to paint in this kind of like this medieval style, like hound-headed warrior. Yeah, someone said they looked it up and it's called cynocephaly. Yeah, that's what it's called, being dog-headed. They could have picked a better word for it, but whatever. Yeah, so Spice, you said that about that guy inviting you to the church. It's actually really funny because... wait, hold on one sec. I will get to that anecdote. So, I just want to make sure I nail this right now. And I want to really hit that kind of like very medieval flavor of dog head situation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint in, I don't want to make it too big, but it'll be fine. So I'm going to have the neck coming up. Normally I'd start from the front, but I didn't. And we're going to get the ear. See how big it is. Oh, cool. Get the ear going in. We'll paint the other ear in. And usually medieval dogs have this kind of like poke out where the eye goes, and then the front, you got to get that part right on the dog. That's what makes it look like a dog, is the nose coming down into like the under jaw. I'm just making up words now, the under jaw, but that's what you really need to make it look like a dog. You can actually see just this line is probably, hopefully, reading to your mind as a dog head. That line is really, and that shape is really what nails it. I'm going to give it an open mouth with some teeth. I feel like we got to get some teeth in there if we're doing the whole biblical vision thing. And normally I wouldn't put the bottom jaw in like that, but I did. So, just feel the need to announce it. Normally I wouldn't do that, but I did. So, and we'll kind of make it leaning forward because it's theoretically going to be like thrusting a sword or something, or at least assailing the city in some way. So we'll do that. That's actually perfect. That is the perfect exact shape I wanted. And we'll put the other ear in too. Boom. Looks great. Perfect. It's like kind of the color of my dog, actually. Perfect. Part of her color. Okay, I'm just going to fill this in real quick. Yeah, if you want me to see something in the chat, you got to put the @OwenCyclops. That gives me this red tag so I see it. Because when I'm painting, if I look up and there's just like a ton of text, it's like dead air if I read it. But I do actually want to see what you guys are saying. Oh yeah, so if you want me to see something, you can even paste it again, but put that @OwenCyclops tag and then I'll actually see it. Otherwise I have to read like literally the whole chat. Which if we were just chilling, I would be down to do. Anyway though, oh yeah, so you mentioned that guy who gave you that invitation to the church. Yeah, it's really funny, man, because I met up with this guy and he invited me to this Orthodox church. And in case anyone doesn't know, I don't belong to any church in particular, although I am into the idea of it. And I was standing there, that's literally the perfect exact shape that I wanted. And I was standing there and I was literally thinking like, wow, I'm feeling this church so much. I wish I should go on Twitter and ask people what books to get about Orthodoxy. And a guy literally walked right over to me that I didn't know, who walked right over to me. And he was like, hey, when you guys were in the sanctuary, I don't know what you call it, when you're in the actual church itself, we weren't in some like rec room type situation. Came over and he was like, hey, I couldn't hear you guys talking back in the sanctuary and before the service. We were kind of just talking about like our backgrounds and stuff. And he was like, I thought you guys might, if you want, here's some books you can check out. And he hands me a list of books to check out. Right as I was just thinking, oh, I should go on Twitter and like ask people what books to get. It's kind of funny. I kind of have a few options here. The thing is, what I'm thinking is he's like a warrior. So I could put him in like armor, but I'm thinking he won't have that barbarian, evil empire energy if I put him in armor, because armor is feudal. It means you're a knight. It means you have money. It's not exactly the look I'm going for. So I think I might put him in kind of like a tunic, almost like a barbarian tunic, which means I'm wondering what color to use. I guess dark green would be kind of dope. I don't want to go full brown because he's brown and then it's not really that cool. I'm going to turn the palette around so I have a little bit more room to work right now. It's funny, I have my phone right here and I can see I got an email that said that someone subscribed to my YouTube channel. So apparently it's all working. I want to go a little faster. I'm cool to go a little over the 2 hour mark, but I don't want to like accidentally lose track of time and just go totally nuts, which has been happening lately. So I have this color here I never really use. Oh, this is sap green. Actually, I use this a lot. I wanted to hit the olive green. Boom. So I think I say this every time I use this color, but I normally never buy this color, which means every time I use it, I'm always a little iffy about how it will deploy. You get used to your tools. I'm sure it's like, it's like playing an instrument. You pick up a guitar you've played 5,000 times. You know exactly how it's going to sound with your amp. You're like ready to go. But when I get a new color like that, a new kind of paint, I'm way more iffy. It's a perfect metaphor, actually. It's like picking up a guitar that, maybe you've played like once or twice. So you know how it's going to handle, but you don't know how the high register is going to be. You don't know how the action is. You're a little less confident. That's how I feel when I deploy this olive green. There's just as many variables, but I'm going to mix it with this Viridian. Viridian's kind of like, if you've been watching the whole time, it's kind of like the alizarin crimson of the greens, where it's darker, it's a great color, but it's really, really, really translucent, so you can't really do much with it. But I'm actually going to add more Viridian, and I'm going to darken that up a lot more, actually. Oh, nice. You sent the thread about the aliens and demons to that guy. Cool. I'm looking at the chat a little bit. Another one from your dad. His father died. A priest came to bless the home and said his mother requested it and asked if he could come in. So my dad let him in and let him do his thing. Later he found out his mom didn't ask for the priest and they had no idea who it was. Yo, that's weird. And after that, the house became haunted. That's bizarre. That's a great setup for like a comic or something. I mean, I know that happened to you. I'm sorry, but it's a great setup for a comic. What I'm thinking painting-wise right now is, so I have this green color. I'm trying to tilt it so there's no flat. There we go. So I have this green color. It's not really getting as dark as I want, but what I'm wondering is if I should tone it down in terms of its saturation, i.e. in terms of how intense the color is. I think I'm going to. Yellow ochre is the best color to dull other colors, so I just want to dull this a little bit. I just don't want it to be like, honestly, like Crayola, crayon, really bright green. I might even abandon this color entirely, but let's see how it goes. Cool. Yeah, I should cut it. Just want to cut that green a little bit, make it not as intense. So we'll give this dog, warrior, our Gog figure, we'll give him this kind of like dull green tunic. I think that's a good color. Dark. I want it to be darker. I'm playing this weird game where I want it to be darker, but I think we'll just roll with it. It doesn't look good, we can paint over it, but I think it'll be good. I think also the dark green will kind of balance out a lot of the color situation I have going on right now. Boom. I'm just going to grab a bunch of this. So this is our barbarian evil figure that God is using for his purposes. And I kind of wish I could like cop out and like cut off his body with something down here. I mean, I could put like a hill in. It's very medieval, but I feel like it's going to look like a cop out, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have his arm coming out. And in the scripture, he has all these weapons, but honestly, I might just have his like hands up against the door of this like city. I think that might be a little bit cooler. And I guess I should put in the other arm, just so it doesn't look like he's got nothing going on over there. Boom. Yeah, this is perfect. And we'll kind of give him this cut coming in. Boom. And then it'll expand back out. I'll probably have to put in like a belt or something, but cool. For the bottom part, I will try and get that kind of like watercolor texture going on. But for the top part, we'll make it the full dark green. Broken armor, rusted bits and pieces. Yeah, I'll make his weapons like rusty and like kind of gross or something. Cool. So we'll paint in this green. And I'll probably give him like red eyes. And I don't know. Let's kind of just see how this goes. Good thing I painted that arm in just to immediately paint completely and totally over it. Perfect. We'll paint this in over here. For some reason I always imagine like barbarians wearing like tunics and stuff like that. Cool. And I want to get the color off the brush so I can come in. Yeah, that's exactly what I want. Nice. Just this kind of like pale green. Bring the eyes attention like away from here. Cool. Yeah, it's really weird that Gog sounds like dog, which also sounds like the word God. I'm not gonna say it has like any. Yo, you looked in Bestiary of Christ to see it. Bestiary of Christ. Is that how people do? People say it bestiary. Doesn't everyone say bestiary? Come on, right? Doesn't have Dogman in there. That's a great book. But yeah, that is disappointing. That's the other weird thing is it's kind of almost like it's like oddly modern, but not really. You know what else I think it is? The werewolf takes up a lot of the mental space that I think a dogman type creature would normally occupy, but werewolf is not the same thing. Maybe I should go off about werewolves a little bit. Yeah, perfect. I kind of regret doing that. It looks like he has like kind of MC Hammer pants now, so I'm gonna just come in and shade that in. Now it looks a lot better. We're cool. We're cool with that. His parachute pants, Dogman, and I guess his feet are coming off the bottom. Doesn't really matter. Okay, cool. So we gotta let that dry a little bit. Now I'm gonna start painting in the city over here. So this is perfect. We're doing great on timing. We'll probably go a little bit over the mark of 9 o'clock, but it's not a big deal. So I do want to hit just one more. This is the last thing we're going to read, and then we'll power through. But I just want to read something in here that I thought was kind of cool because I was looking through the book of Revelation. By the way, I said before, remember I dropped that blue color, and I was like, wow, this is so Book of Hours right now. This is a perfect example of what I mean by that. This is actually definitely from, I'm not even going to look over here, it's definitely from a French Book of Hours. For sure. Let's see if I'm right. Completes the summer. Illuminated manuscript. It's a manuscript. I bet it's from a Book of Hours. That one is from France. That's definitely the style, yeah. But you can see I dropped that exact blue color in the sky and said that. They're kind of like prayer book manuscripts that have like calendars in them sometimes. It's the best explanation I can come up with for them. Anyway, so here's the thing. So I wanted to hit this really quick and then, we'll power through the last part of the show. But we still have a lot to do, so if you're enjoying it, I'm not saying it's ending imminently, but we will get to the latter portion. So I wanted to hit this because I was looking at the book of Revelation, and the city is used as a positive symbol so much in there, like the holy city, and the saints are in this encampment, which is kind of called a city, or it's listed with a beautiful city. Not the same thing, but whatever. And I kind of just want to unpack that a tiny bit. Not really unpack that like we're in some classroom, but it's just so interesting because I think for a lot of us, like for me especially, I can't speak for you guys, but I can speak for kind of the sphere that we hang out in and what I think the vibe is. Like cities are really viewed as kind of like a dark place. At least for me in my own artwork, I always use the city in that context. It's almost like a negative modern jungle. It has a lot of the symbol of the wilderness wrapped up in there for me, but in like a modern sense. It's a place that has a lot of like crime and like my own experience in like a few cities. I mentioned living in like Philadelphia and stuff. That's a great city. I mean, I'm not saying cities are bad at all. It's kind of what I'm trying to unpack right now. But it's like they have this like darker element. So I thought it was very interesting that the city was used in this way in the book of Revelation. And I was thinking about it a lot. And I looked up some Augustine commentary on that part where it's mentioned that we read before. And what was interesting was it said that, the city and the encampment of the saints especially is not meant to be like a literal encampment, like a literal physical place you would put a dot on a map. He said that it represents the union of believers and that they kind of are this like omnipresent city or encampment that isn't confined to a single like physical location. It's almost more like a spiritual location that you participate in by virtue of being like part of the body of like believers. And I thought that was really interesting. And then I opened up this book, and I thought we could just see a little bit of what it says about the city. I actually did plan this out, so I'm not just going to wander through here. So let's just hit this a little bit. There was some interesting stuff in here. In the first place, cities delimited civilization from the wilderness and solidity and continuity from nomadic wandering. The cities delineated civilization from wilderness and solidity and continuity from nomadic wandering. So it's kind of this boundary between like chaos and like order in a very interesting way. As they still do for the individual or group that seeks in them the place of belonging. It's another aspect of the city symbolism that's interesting. Like people see them as a place where they can come together and be a part of a group. It's kind of obvious, but it's also interesting. Dig and dream, hammer till your city comes, wrote Carl Sandburg. Cities are the goals of pilgrimage and embody our projections of possibility, reorientation, and rebirth. Cities are brides and harlots. Cities sleep and wake. We are seduced and infatuated by a city. We fall in love with it. A great city anywhere in the world is, for someone, a defining destination, expressing a crystallization of sorts, evoking one's innermost recesses, wherein to be found is the inviolable center, divine spark, immortal point of self. Sacred mandalas, of which the center is the focus, are sometimes configured as cities, and the city is also an image of the alchemical lapis, signifying sanctuary, integrity, symmetry, balance, the marriage of heaven and earth, things like that. So I thought that was really interesting. People like seeing cities as a place where they can come and like be with other people. It's like this almost like holy destination, and it's like pure form. It's like symbols have like a positive form and a negative form. I'm always engaging with cities in like the negative form, but it's like the positive form. I just want to read one more part here. Celestial cities, what we're thinking about. I'm not really going to paint a celestial city, but kind of. Eventually we will. Celestial cities depict the dwelling place of divinities, of perfection or completion that transcends or excludes all the oppositions of the worldly sphere. They can represent a different level of consciousness or a new spirit of understanding. But ordinary cities also infiltrate our dreams and nightmares, recalling the structures, thoroughfares, familiar and unfamiliar neighborhoods of our psychic adaptation, and the sections of our lives that are undergoing construction, change, or disintegration. Soaring urban skyscrapers have become the emblems of our aspirations and of our overreach. I think that's really true too. When I was in the city being like surrounded by these skyscrapers all the time and stuff, for me it became a symbol of like humans like reaching kind of like too far, but I'm sure when they first started coming out, people saw them as like pinnacles of achievement. And that's basically it. Cities are pictures of our conscious attainments and cultural evolution, and every city contains, this is dope, cities are pictures of our conscious attainment and cultural evolution, and every city contains the means of its own demise. Epic. So what I want to do right now is what I was thinking is I kind of want to paint in this little, let's say like more humble situation. You know, I'm thinking about the encampments of the saints that's described as being assailed by Gog and Magog in this like revelatory story. And then I think maybe next week we'll paint like a celestial city. That could be really dope. It would kind of be like a redemption from all the negative, like, apocalyptic symbolism I've been aggressively flooding you guys with week in and week out. But for now, honestly, I'm just going to freeform it. I'm not really going to worry too much about it coming out well. I think it will come out well, but I'm just going to kind of wing it, and let's just see how it goes. I've been worried about, like, winging it and planning everything out, but for the last part of the show, let's just kind of wing it and see how it goes. I will read the chat more if people want to talk, and then probably got like 30, 40. Let's try and wrap it up in 30 minutes. That's what I'm going to try and do. Go 15 minutes over. I realize the show's become a little longer because I've been reading a little bit more. So the painting still takes the exact amount of time, I think, but the reading makes it a little longer. But I don't know. I think the reading's really dope. I have a really good time doing that. Okay, so I'm going to paint in. I'm going to kind of jack from the beginning. We saw that medieval picture with the big doors, and I mentioned the big doors. I'm just going to jack that. I'm going to throw down some big doors, and that's going to be kind of the basis that we build off from for our little encampment of the saints. I'm just going to throw down this huge wooden door, and I think that'll be a good kind of like anchor point to build the rest of the encampment off of. Perfect. A little crooked, but it doesn't really matter. And then this is burnt umber. I'll go over it with probably the burnt sienna to get some light brown lines on this huge door. What has been your favorite use of Christian symbology in media? That's an interesting question. Christian symbology in media. I can't really think of any Christian media off the bat. I'm probably missing something pretty obvious there. Have I really partaken in any popular Christian media recently or ever? I'm pretty not media focused. I don't know. I couldn't really say, man. Honestly, nothing comes to mind. I can't think. If you can think of any Christian media, I'm missing out, I guess. I guess I'm thinking of movies and like shows. Oh, King of the Hill. They have a church in King of the Hill. No, just kidding. Can't really say. I can't really say. Give me some Christian media and I'll think about it. Nineveh was also described as a great city. Is it Nineveh or Nineveh? I like saying Nineveh. People say Nineveh. Whatever. It's described as a great city, but they had to repent, which they did. But maybe a message in there that cities can become filled with sin, like Sodom and Gomorrah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, the thing is, like, the few cities I lived in a few cities on the East Coast at different times. And, yeah, it's like they all have varying levels of, man, that looks really, like, washed out. Yeah, I'm going to kind of try and fix that up a little bit. They all have varying levels of, like, a wholesome substructure that's, like, actually connected to, like, God and nature. And then on top of that, you get these, like, sick layers. I mean, I really do think, honestly, like, I know people post about it on Twitter, and it's kind of like cliche, like, oh, the city, like, oh, you don't like cities. That's like the cool new thing to not like. But really, I think that the way they affect people's mind is, like, deeply profound. It's, like, really, really, really deeply profound. I think it's actually underestimated, to be honest with you. I mean, I've told the stories before, but, like, especially when I was interacting with, like, younger people that grew up in cities the whole time, it was crazy, man. Like, something like a farm might as well be like a sci-fi universe to them. It's insane. And I was in a position where I basically got to hang out with a lot of people that had only ever lived in cities their whole life. That sounds, I mean, I'm not saying like there's some like other species, right? But, you know, that wasn't my experience. Only living in like a hyper urban environment. And it was really interesting, man. It was really interesting. I think the city way of life, if it passes like a certain size, ooh, I'm about to make a mistake. Pause. Mistakes are about to be made. I was going to throw down these Venetian red walls, but then it'll look just like the red of the flames. And also I have to paint this guy's hand in, so we need to back up. We need to back up the story right now. Yeah, Tower of Babel. Someone in the chat said Tower of Babel is a negative city symbol. Yeah, for sure. It's literally the tower. Yeah, definitely. Someone said you to bomb, Owen. Yeah, thank you, man. I don't think of myself as the bomb, but that's nice. But yeah, Babylon. Yeah, Babylon. We've been talking about that before. Babylon is like the archetypal evil city. So I feel like I got to make him holding like a sword or something. This is a pretty good example. So if you're drawing stuff and you don't know how the hand should be or how the person should be, I actually just do it myself. So right now, you can't see me, obviously, but I am just posing the way he would be posing, and I'm going to make him holding a spear. So I'm seeing how my hand would be holding a spear just in terms of the thumb and stuff like that, so I know how to put it in. I'm going to put in the thumb. Kind of give him like just dog hands. And that'll be the fingers coming down. But yeah, I really do think there's something about the city, and especially because I made the switch to like a rural environment. Yeah, I mean, I think we underestimate the extent to which it like warps your consciousness. I'm not saying everyone that lives in a city is like dumb or something like that, but I think for the average people who don't have any level of like introspection or reflection or way of like reflecting on their way their own like mental processes is developing, yeah, I think the city can be pretty like disastrous. Okay, so I'm gonna give this guy a spear. The hand paint was still wet, so I might have to go back in and just fix that up, but it's not a big deal. You know, spear might look kind of lame, kind of like emasculine, so I might not make it like a full spear. I guess this isn't really how you grip a spear, but it's not a big deal. Maybe I'll make it like a torch. Maybe, yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're making it a torch. It'll be a little bit cooler, and then it'll match the flames on the outside. And I'm actually just going to use this brown color with a little bit of the green to paint in the fold for the other part of his robe. Cool. Boom. Perfect. Yeah, I also think it's interesting that these, like, you know, we're talking about the cities, that these, like, empires and nations are, like, forces of evil and good. It's kind of interesting if you think about it, actually. Like, God using, like, a nation and, like, a group of people at large. I feel like that has some connection to, like, the city symbolism also somehow. Like, you know, humans come together and then, I guess the word I'm really looking for is, like, a hive mind. Humans form, like, this larger mind by coming together, and I think in a way the hive mind, it's really a perfect word for it, the hive mind of these like different nations and peoples almost functions as like a character in the Bible in and of itself. We see and feel these larger groups of people almost as like characters in the story, which is kind of interesting. It's not necessarily intuitive that would be the case, that you'd have a situation where these like nations are like in and of themselves like actors and characters in this like larger dramatic narrative about the battle between good versus evil, but almost more so than individuals. That's not true. But a lot of times on the stage is like a nation, like as a character for sure. Okay. That looks dope. He might not come out as evil as we wanted, but it's okay. Now I'm going to throw down the vermilion as the fire. Boom. Peter M. says, cities would have been a mixed image for early Christians as well. There's the heavenly city, but they were also chased out of earthly Jerusalem before it was destroyed. Yeah, I think that binary of the good and bad manifestations of a symbolism is really valuable to work with. It kind of got ruined because when you start talking about that, it kind of seems like, for me, it like reminds me of like Kabbalah, where you have like the inverted and the not inverted, and like tarot cards have like the upside down and not upside down. It has this kind of like weird, sort of like dark esoterica flavor, but I think that really is like a valuable thing to work with. I think almost every symbol has that aspect where there's like the good aspect of it. I don't want to say good, but like, there's that aspect, and there's the inverted is really the perfect word because it's like a perversion of its goodness. Like a city, like we were just reading, is a place where people can pilgrim to and come together and unite and become part of this one body and find a place to belong. But then conversely, that could also mean that they lose their sense of like moral purposeness and righteousness, which is the property of like individuals. It's not really the property of like a mob. You don't think of a mob as like getting together and becoming more righteous because of it. Okay, I'm gonna give this dog red eyes too. Let's give him. We'll give him the full profile. So let's give him one big red eye. Nice. Oh, we gotta give him teeth. That's why he's also lacking the luster. For sure, nations are people. Yeah, you guys know about the concept of territorial angels? That's like the one thing I really want to be like completely theologically sound, but is still on the fringes. Where like there are angels and like these intelligences, like the way people have guardian angels, like different nations and different like larger groups have these guardian angels. I love that. That's like one of my favorite just ideas and things in general. Okay, I'm gonna give this guy some teeth. I'm gonna outline the eye. Trying to work a little faster than normal, but it'll be fine. Boom. I'm gonna outline his face. Give him the dog nose. That really cements it as a dog also. The dog nose is huge. Boom. And then we'll probably just talk more about Dog Man, honestly, because this is really on my mind. I feel like I should keep bringing it back to the biblical symbolism, but it's actually funny because I really did not anticipate that sync up. When I found the images of Gog and Magog with the dog heads, I was like, yo, what is going on? Nice. I actually really like how that came out. Came out a little bit better than I expected, actually. Oh, you're about to bridge the Dogman werewolf gap. I guess we are gonna. I feel like at the end of every show I go off on a particular topic, and I guess it's gonna be werewolves. Speaking of Dogman stuff, there was a story in Sweden during the 1600s of this dude who said he was a werewolf and would go into hell to fight the devil and witches, the Hound of God. Yeah, I actually 100% have an insight into that I would potentially describe as unique. I don't know if you have an explanation for that. But there is an explanation that I will talk about. That's one of my favorite things to discuss with people that I don't do too often, but I will. As soon as I decide what color I'm making the walls of this city right now, because I want to use the washed out Venetian red, but the flames are red. I want to use the brown, but this guy's brown and the door is brown. I'm gonna go for it. We're gonna be bold. We're gonna be bold, and we're gonna try and get the washed out Venetian red color, and if it doesn't look good, it doesn't look good, but I think it will look good. Yeah, that's perfect. I just wanted this kind of like brick color. It's perfect. Yeah, so who said that? Tyler Prime said that. Yeah, so it's a pretty common phenomenon what you just said, a person saying they're a werewolf, and that they travel to hell and stuff like that. And it's actually interesting because you get firsthand accounts of people talking about that, and they're even executed for it sometimes, or thrown in jail and stuff. And there is a reason for that actually most scholars don't talk about. They don't know about it. I shouldn't say they don't talk about it because they don't know about it. That sounds really pretentious. It sounds like I'm being pretentious, but not really, because I've read a lot of books about all that stuff, and once you piece together a key aspect of it, it's actually absolutely maddening that people go to school and get their PhDs and write about, witchcraft and the werewolves and all that stuff, but they're missing like the key aspect of it that makes it all make sense. So I will give you my little spiel on it right now, which is that kind of makes more sense to talk about the witches and stuff, but you have all these people confessing to going to these black Sabbaths and meeting with the devil and, cavorting with demons, and they confessed and they literally got burned at the stake, and you kind of have to ask yourself why they would do that. I mean, I'm sure some of us think that that's real. I definitely think it's real to do things like that, but you also have to say, okay, but are all these like teenage girls, and like they weren't really teenagers, are all these women in colonial America really like accessing these like satanic shamanic powers and traveling to the devil's world and all that stuff all the time? Doesn't really make much sense. And then you got to ask yourself why they're confessing if they're lying, It all doesn't really stack up. And then you get these guys in jail telling people point blank that they were werewolves and stuff like that. So basically you get this weird thing, and scholars always come up with weird explanations like, oh, it was mass hysteria, or like it was just sexism because they hated women or something. Like people come up with like really dumb reasons, honestly, that don't really play out in my opinion. So I'm going to paint in some dark bricks on this encampment. I'm just going to we'll go light on this one, and then honestly I think maybe next week we'll do like a full-on like celestial city. That might be the move. Anyway, though, with the werewolf and like lycanthropy stuff, basically what they were doing is there's an indigenous European, I'm sugarcoating the word white, there's an indigenous European, just because it came to America also, so that's why it's not specifically European, form of shamanism, where they take solanaceous plants like datura and nightshade and belladonna and all that stuff, and they make an ointment out of them, and you coat your body with this ointment. And this is going to be a review for some of you guys. Some of you guys probably have never heard this. Some of you guys have probably heard me talk about this before. I don't think I brought it up on the show, but it's going to be a review for some of you guys. But those plants aren't psychedelic. They're deliriants, which means basically that your hallucinations aren't based on reality, and they're like completely and totally immersive. So what that means is, like on a psychedelic drug, you might look at your rug and it like looks really crazy and weird or something. But on a deliriant, like the kind of drug that I'm describing, you might be in your closet and think that you are going to 7-Eleven to get like some soda with your friends, and you would like really think that, so that's what that class of drugs was, and people would use those drugs, and then that's what really is the explanation for the whole colonial witchcraft and colonial werewolfism, lycanthropy as it's often called. That's the explanation for it, because when the women would do it for whatever reason, this is another interesting thing you can muse about yourself, but when the women would do it, whether it's because of the female mind or whether they were actually doing it or whether they were preconceived to think this would happen, you can tell yourself whatever you want or try and figure it out, but they would imagine, or I don't want to say imagine, their experience would be that they were going to these like black masses with these demons and like having sex with demons and stuff like that. And they would really think it was happening, actually. There's a letter from colonial times that's documented in this book. I can grab the book if anyone wants to check it out. It's on my shelf on the other side of the room, though. But there's this letter in this book where this woman goes to her priest. Maybe I have told this story on the show before. And she basically tells him that I go to these black Sabbaths and stuff. And he's like, no, you don't. She goes home and covers herself with this ointment. And she just collapses on the floor. And then when she wakes up, she's like, see, I did it. And he's like, yo, no. So that's what the women would do. But for the werewolves, the whole point of the story is that the men would have a different experience. They would usually wear these like wolf skins or animal skins on the parts of their body that touched other parts, like under the elbows and armpits and in between the knees and legs and stuff. And as they were running around and stuff on like datura and these like really powerful psychoactive plants, they would think that they were a wolf. They would transform into a wolf, and they would even kill people and stuff like that sometimes, fully 100% immersed in the reality of being an animal, or they would become other animals. And there's even a case in colonial America where a man was arrested. I'm just going to kind of do in like a kind of like chill, archetypal little encampment city structure while we're talking. I'm going to start thinking about wrapping this up. Should have worked a little faster, but I like talking to you guys. I'm kind of figuring it out. I want to do like 20 more minutes and then wrap it up. But yeah, there's a guy who got caught being a werewolf and he got arrested. And in jail, the people were like turned into a wolf again. And it's recorded in this first-hand account. And he's like, I can do it. You just have to let me go home and get this ointment. And they're like, what are you talking about? Just do it. And he's like, I can't. I need the ointment. And they don't know what he's talking about, so they don't let him, and he just stays in jail. But what he's talking about is an ointment made of those solanaceous plants and stuff. So in my opinion, that's like what werewolfism like really is. There might be some like cryptid weird phenomenon. Maybe it dovetails with Dogman stuff, but it was people doing like an indigenous European form of shamanism. It was white people shamanism. Most people don't know that exists, but white people shamanism was a thing. Kind of has like an atavistic resurgence right now. But since those plants aren't illegal, people actually still do sell them. And you should not, kind of shouldn't have said that, but you shouldn't go investigate that because you can really easily kill yourself. The plants are poisonous. When you're in a delirium state, you could easily like cut your hand and not know it's cut, and like cut your body and not know. So really, really don't do that. But that's what, that's like the kind of secret behind a lot of that stuff. And yeah, I think as we talked about before, the werewolf stuff probably took a lot of the steam out of like Dogman. Like in people's mind, they're like, oh, a dog human, like a werewolf. But it's actually a totally, completely separate phenomenon. Oh yeah, Roche's fan is right. False confessions are typical. Robert Lifton's Thought Reform books talks about that. That's a really cool connection, Robert Lifton to the Confessions of the Witch Trial. Yeah, dude, that's awesome. I never really thought about that. I mean, of course I know some of the confessions were false, but for me, I can't look at the whole phenomenon and say that they were all false. I'm gonna kind of play around a little bit here and put in like a dome, almost like it has like a Heavenly City vibe with the bricks. I'm just kind of winging it right now. So I'm just gonna put in this kind of like blue dome. I feel like the dome is like a very like heavenly kind of structure. It kind of mimics like the vault of heaven. I want to get some blue over here. Should put some people in here, but I don't know. I didn't really leave the room. I guess this city's kind of like a warm-up for the maybe the next heavenly city we'll do. So I got the dome in here, and I'm actually just gonna go kind of full medieval sketch right now, and I'm just gonna not pencil in, but I'm just gonna like sketch in some buildings like in the background. I don't actually know how this is gonna look, but let's see. I haven't really gone really far out of my element in a while, so we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to kind of just act like there's like these buildings behind this stuff over here. And maybe I'll kind of pencil them in lightly. We'll put a window over here. We'll put kind of a building over here in the back. Sometimes in medieval manuscripts they kind of do this. They'll just kind of kick into like drawing mode when it's surrounded by paintings and stuff. We've got the kind of nice little windows in here. Yeah, nice. Perfect. It's a really good call. I'll kind of just throw down a little bit more over here behind this guy's torch over here. Get some buildings going on. Now we're in, damn, I really forgot his name momentarily. Damn, what's the painter's name? The painting show guy. Bob Ross. We're in Bob Ross mode. Just some happy little windows. Little encampment of the saints. Have a little saint encampment over here. Getting assailed by forces prophesied in the book of Revelation. It's a happy little holy encampment. For real though, that's what it is. Yeah, I like how that looks a lot. It's got a good vibe going on there. And I'm just going to drag out some of the color. I do this sometimes if I just sketch something in. I'm just going to drag out the color a little bit. I don't want to like put in like full color, but I don't want it to be like just a drawing, so I'm just going to come in and kind of drag out the color a little bit. Yeah, that looks good. That looks really good. Boom. I'm going to drag it out here a little bit too. And I'm trying to keep some things low contrast, some things high contrast. It'll just look like kind of like a city in the distance. Yeah, it's perfect. Get a little shadow even under there. Very subtle. You can't even really see that. I want to make that a little bit more. Very subtle. And in fact, I'm going to see if I can maybe kick up some of this red. Yeah, that looks good. Nice. Nice. Really pleased with that. This actually just got really dope. Okay, I'm starting to think about like wrapping it up mode. How I'm gonna start thinking about that. I really like the fire. I don't feel like I have to dig in there more. I'm gonna draw in on the door with a lighter brown right now. And then, I don't know, it kind of just actually really, with that little city drawing, really kind of just closed in on itself. It looks good right now. Let's see what people are saying in the chat. It's a Euro myth that got involved in Christian life. Yeah, if anyone wants to look into what I just said about the solanaceous plant use and stuff like that, I've only really found that very well documented in one place. It's a book called Hallucinogens and Shamanism. Obviously, if you're here watching this, you know that you should not engage in shamanistic practices. Obviously, it's like the 101 for logging onto the YouTube channel. But yeah, it's called Hallucinogens and Shamanism. And in the center of that book, it's a book edited by a guy named Michael Harner. He didn't write all the articles in it, but he edited it. In the center of that book is a chapter. It's the only chapter on Europe. But I think it's actually called Use of Solanaceous Plants in European Witchcraft or something like that. But that's one of the only places that I've seen it very well documented. It's called Hallucinogens and Shamanism by Michael J. Harner. And that is too light. It's too light, so I'm going to throw down a little bit of white. I assume you've heard the cool and rainy year, ergot, rot, and rye grains, which led to people getting bread in it. Yeah, people talk about ergot poisoning and stuff like that. There's a lot of weird stuff like that. For me, when you delve into those topics, it's always really important to, well, this is just my opinion. It's really important to consider like all the angles and that things can have more than one explanation. I mean, I think that full on, paranormal, witchy, devilly, theological stuff is real. But also, I'm sure that sometimes people hallucinated it. Someone asked me on Twitter a few days ago. I don't think I actually responded because I've been really busy. But they were like, when people are schizophrenic, is it demons or are they just mentally ill or what? And what I wanted to say, I didn't write the response out because, like I said, I've been busy, was like, it's not an either or thing. People always come at these topics of like, oh, is it one way or the other way? But, I'm sure sometimes when people have mental issues, sometimes it's probably purely a chemical imbalance. And then I'm sure other times there's probably something, kind of theological at play. And then I'm sure sometimes it's probably something else. So, it goes for everything, like aliens, Bigfoot, demonica, any like weird topic you want to poke into. It's always important, I feel like, to just remember that. You always want to kind of like go overboard and then you're kind of becoming like a caricature of yourself where you're like, oh, every time someone gets sick, it's demons. Which could be true. That was actually a bad example because maybe that's true. But you guys know what I'm saying. Okay, cool. Someone said there's a pretty decent correlation between the weather and witchcraft stuff. Dude, that's fucking interesting. I'm really open to it. That could have a variety of explanations, like even like mushrooms or, people picking the solanaceous plants like angels, trumpet, and stuff like that. Someone has to grow them or find them in nature, and people didn't grow all that datura. But there could be more datura around after like a rainstorm and stuff, or after a really rainy year. It's really interesting. Datura actually grows basically everywhere. So yeah, I think it's a big factor. All right, honestly, this is looking good. I'm gonna start closing in on wrapping it up. I kind of just want to get some color out in the back, and then I think we're gonna be like kind of good, honestly. I really like how we just landed. This feels like a nice like small illustration on like a medieval manuscript or something. So I kind of want to just roll with that, honestly. I'm gonna get some blue, get some of this blue out here. I'm just gonna try. Oh, I need to get a way bigger brush. So I'm gonna start just kind of pulling the color out. If you watched the Daniel one last week, I really pulled like the color out at the end. Like just picking up some of the color. It's not really happening there yet. There we go. And just kind of toning the background. Really, I should do this before I paint, but I never do. It's just doesn't really fit the live show format, but you can't even see that. Maybe it's too much, but I want you to be able to see it. Just kind of toning it a little bit. Perfect. And I want some of this red to like kick up. There we go. I want some of the red to like come out here. I don't want it to just be straight blue. Really, one of the nice things about watercolors is you can get the colors like mixing in a way where you probably wouldn't mix them that way, but see, I'm just going to come in. I'm just going to do it. Let's just get these out. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I really wanted right there, actually. Let's get some of this red coming out. That looks good. Now we're talking. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Boom. Yeah, look at that. It's even okay if we lose some of the form on the back of the flames. It's not really a big deal. Yeah. That is what I'm talking about. I'm going to grab some of this Prussian blue. It'll probably be a little too dark, but it's okay. Actually, it's perfect. It's perfect. Even some of the black hands. The black hands can bleed out a little bit too. When you have these really strong, like simplified forms, you don't have to really worry about, you know, the viewer not being able to read it or something. It'll always kind of play out well. I don't really want this like castle I've built to bleed out too much though. And then what I'm going to do, I had a good idea actually. I didn't really get any people in the encampment. That's okay. We got our Gog dog figure. Say that 10 times fast. We got our Gog dog Magog figure assailing this city, the encampment of the saints over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to put a bunch of light above the city. And that's a perfect illustration of what it is and what's going on. Wow, this one really came together in the last 10 minutes. That's sick. Okay. People are talking in the chat. Kind of got distracted from what I was doing. Oh, nice. Cool. Oh, nice. Someone has wandered in for the first time. Nice. And Fritz, see, Fritz, I said I made you a mod arbitrarily, but look, you're upholding your modly duties so well. Yeah, we do this every Tuesday night at 7. And there's usually a theme, and then we kind of kick off into talking about other stuff. So I'm just going to put all this light above the city. And I use the lemon yellow. I mentioned I used the cadmium yellow before, the cool yellow. I used the warm yellow before. Here I'm using the kind of cool yellow because I want it to be a little bit more intense, but it's actually a little bit too intense. So what I'm going to do, if you're working with watercolors, this is not watercolor, by the way, it's gouache, but whatever. I can actually just dab it up. And I'm just going to pick up, and that actually will also give it a little bit more of like a luminous quality. I can roll with the intense yellow. I kind of like it, but this, actually what you're seeing right now, is exactly what I wanted. And I'm going to cut that yellow with a little bit of the blue, just a teeny bit. It's going to be a little green, but it's okay. It'll look a little bit more natural when I drop it down. There we go. Cool. So it'll be cut with the green a little bit. And I'm going to make it look more natural by coming in. Actually, just want to get a little bit of the blue in. Yeah, that's good. We'll have the light kind of like pouring out of the city. Just kind of like a little light cloud up here. And since it got so dark, just want to make sure I get it. So you can see here what I did was the lemon yellow is a really cool yellow, which means it's tending towards green. That's how I would describe it. So the light there is a little green, actually. That's not exactly what I wanted. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some of the cadmium yellow. And while it's still wet, I'm just going to throw in... Yeah, this is a good idea. I'm going to throw in the cadmium yellow, and the light's going to be kind of like pouring out of the city. Yeah, cool. And it's a little dark, but it's okay. Painting in light in kind of this like, medieval-y style, kind of like a medieval context is usually pretty difficult in my opinion because, you want to paint in the light as white, but it's really yellow. It's really like a more warm light. And I'm just going to throw in this cadmium. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Doesn't really exactly still have that light flavor I was looking for though. So I think what I'm going to do, I might be overworking it, but I think I have an idea and we are going to do it because we got to take risks. Nothing great happens without a risk. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just take straight white. I'm just going to take straight up white right now. Where is the white? Cool. I'm just going to make these like beams of light coming out. I think it's going to be dope. And if it's not dope, I'll just quickly stop the stream and cancel the show. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So I'm trying to do it quickly because I want it to still be wet. And let's just see how it goes right now. Boom. Yeah, that's a great call. Boom. Oh, perfect. Nice. You get a little bit coming on the outside. Yes. Wow, that was intense. I actually didn't really know how it was going to play out. Can you feel the adrenaline? I actually get an adrenaline release when I'm doing it live with you guys and I don't know how it's going to go, I actually feel the adrenaline. Like sometimes when I don't know how something's going to go and I'm worried it's going to look bad, I like start sweating, but it's cool. That looks dope. I'm definitely cool with that. I'm definitely cool with that. That looks sick, actually. Yeah. And I could try to blend it out a little bit, but it's at a certain point I think I'm going to be working it too much and I kind of just have to accept how it looks. And since I am cool with how it looks, I'm just going to roll with it. I want to get a little sun color coming around over here. And I'm going to quickly... So yeah, we're going to start wrapping it up. If anyone wants to ask me anything, I'll check out the chat. But I thought this would take a lot longer, but actually it just kind of like cemented itself really well. And we'll wrap up by 9:30. Half an hour over. Not a big deal. Trying to hit the 2-hour mark, but I'm also not going to like not finish a painting, right? So I'm just kind of surround the moon. The moon can get away. The moon you can get away with the white light, because I mean people think of the moon as white. Damn, this looks dope, man. Oh, I got to get in here though. I got to get in here. Oh yeah, if anyone wants to ask me anything, do it, because we're gonna any second now I'm gonna look at this and be like, yeah, we're good. Okay, it's actually okay. It kind of highlights the bow. Yeah, man, I'm feeling that. I'm gonna throw some rocks down on the ground, but we're closing in. Some of the pictures kind of finish themselves. It's a little dark, actually. Cool. There we go. That's what I want. Just a little like texture down at the bottom. Could have gone darker, but yeah, what I'm doing is what I advise other people not to do. I always say, like, once you start worrying about ruining it, the game's over. You should just stop playing. You know, once you start worrying about it not being good, you're not able to make like the confident decisions that like people are responding to when they actually look at it. It's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm like, oh, I don't want to mess it up, so that's why I leaned in and made them a little darker. All right, cool. Honestly, I'll put in some little details. I think we're good, man. I think we're getting good. The little details, I'm going to throw in kind of like a tie on this robe really quick. Yeah, that looks sick. Nice. Nice. Honestly, I think we're good. I think this one really just landed in like a really good spot. Nice. I'm looking at it on the screen right now, and I'm like, yeah. Yeah, also I have it in front of me, but I like looking at the screen too and seeing like exactly what you guys are saying. Nice. Okay, this is dope. All right, I'm calling this one. Nice. So you can see sometimes they kind of finish themselves up. Cool. So like I said, if anyone wants to ask me anything, you can ask me. Otherwise, I'm going to start. I'll kind of go over how this went in the symbolism and stuff, and then see if there's any questions for me. Then we'll wrap this up. Yeah, I think this went really dope. For the last few, I've actually had more of a plan of like the composition. Composition in art, in case people don't know, is like how things are laid out. But yeah, I really like how this came out. I really like the dog kind of warrior figure we talked about, you know, Gog, and this like kind of prophetic evil empire like being used for kind of like God's purposes and stuff. I guess if I did this again, that's something I would probably try to explore a little bit more, is like maybe a hand coming down, like something like that. But we have this like evil figure being used for like God's purposes, like assailing this kind of like holy city encampment type situation. I think I kind of like landed between like a city or like a fortress, but I was really thinking about the St. Augustine commentary that I talked about initially, where the word encampment is used intentionally because the body of believers that's represented by the city or the encampment is in like a military style position, in the sense that it's like the church militant engaging with the world and like engaging with evil and things like that. So that's kind of what I was thinking about when I got there. Sun and moon looking dope. I like the hands and the angel and stuff. I really like this up here with the angel and the devil's all chained up. Kind of just doing a little recap, but yeah, I really like how this turned out a lot. So let's see. I'll see if anyone asks me anything. I'll talk about what we're going to do next week, and then we'll wrap this up. Okay. Questions. Are you Orthodox? I'm not Orthodox. I don't belong to any particular church. I'm really thinking about what to do. It's a long story, but I go back and forth between obsessing over what church to join and then kind of being like, I'm just kind of aggrandizing my ego. I'm just going to try and like be a good moral person and have a positive relationship with God. I'm more sympathetic to apostolic traditions like Catholicism and Orthodoxy, but I'm kind of torn. I kind of see where everyone's coming from, you could say. I wasn't born Christian, in case this is like your first time here. Although I feel like I recognize your username. Owen Cyclops, any more collaboration or conversations with Jonathan in the planning stage right now? We kind of left it up in the air. We're definitely, I mean, I'm not speaking for him. We kind of left it up in the air. I'm sure that we'll do something again. It's kind of interesting because we have so much overlap, but also have like different perspectives, and our art is kind of like that too. You know, on the one hand, our art is like very similar in the sense that we are two guys kind of into like, you know, symbolism and archetypes and religious imagery. But on the other hand, our art almost couldn't be more different. Like he's doing these hardcore stone carvings and I'm doing like these modern illustrations. So I feel like there's a lot of really, really interesting stuff we could talk about. So yeah, nothing in the works right now, but I'm definitely down. We kind of left it up in the air. We kind of left it at like, all right, let's talk in a few weeks. So we'll see how it goes. But I think he's really cool. He's a really cool guy. Owen Cyclops, any chance the wife will comment on a stream? Oh, she did the Q&A on Twitter. I don't know. Maybe eventually. She has come in the room before. I'll get my dog on and then we'll warm up. We'll build up to the wife reveal eventually. I'm an Orthodox sympathizer, sort of Protestant and agnostic, tranquil crisis. Yeah, that sums it up. Yeah, I feel you. Oh. Dozo said I wasn't asking you. Yeah, I was like, I feel like I've seen you here before. All right, word up. Cool. That went really well. I always feel the need to like hardcore recap everything at the end, but you guys were here. You guys saw how it went down. I think this went really dope. I'm feeling as we progress forward that I'm using more of like the watercolor texture with the thick paint. Push the color scheme. So yeah, I feel the need to recap and like justify everything that happened, but you guys were here and I think it turned out dope. I think next week, oh wait, is next week call-in show? Let's see what date, what's the date? No, it's not. Wow, nice. Okay, next week I feel like we'll do maybe like some Heavenly City stuff. We've done like all these dark visions of the New Testament and Old Testament on the last few episodes for season 2. So I think maybe we'll do like a redemptive, bright, you know, holy city kind of thing next week. That's what I'm thinking. If you really want to know, tag me on Twitter and ask me. But I think we'll do something like that. It's like kind of a good warm up for you. You can see what's going down over here. Something cool could happen. So yeah, guys, that is basically it. I really love doing this. I think it's going really well. I think it's only getting better. I'm really flattered people are into it, and I like hanging out with you guys a lot, honestly. I always look forward to this all day, every Tuesday. And yeah, that's it. If you want to hit me with any feedback, let me know how it goes. I'm doing the show, so I don't know what it's like watching it. So maybe you pick up on something I don't. But yeah, that's it, man. Thanks a lot for coming out, checking it out. Thank you for investing in your spiritual development, not via the show. This is purely fun, but I'm assuming if you're here that you are invested in your spiritual development in other ways. So thank you. We need as many active, positive, fully armored, fully equipped, full blast. We need as many full blast people as possible to deal with the problems and situations that are transpiring and on the horizon. So thank you for coming through. Come back next week. Hit me up on Twitter. I love hanging out with you guys online. It's dope, honestly. And I will catch you guys soon. Thanks a lot for watching, guys.